Alright guys, welcome to the card review for the Boomsday project. My name is Get Me Out, and I'm going to be reviewing the full set of cards, 135 new ones. But I'm going to be reviewing them a little bit different than all the other streamers that you're going to be seeing doing them. I'm going to be reviewing them in the realm of the wild format. So we're going to see a lot of cards that might be super impactful in standard, immediately be like, oh, it's crap in wild, or the exact opposite. It might not look like it has a lot of synergy in standard, but it looks like it's going to have a lot of synergy in wild. So that's going to be the game plan. I don't like doing the whole 1 through 5 because then people disagree with the rating system and it's really weird. So I'm just going to be talking about the potential I see for the cards and whether I think it'll see play, and if so, in what situations. Alright, so first off, we're going to be starting, we're going to be going in alphabetical order. We're going to be starting off with the Druid class. You know, everybody's favorite class, right? Right alongside Priest. But yeah, Druid, I think, is one of the few classes that actually got a bunch of really, really good tools in Wild. And so we'll go ahead and just, get right to it. We're going to be talking about the first card, Flabidinous Floop, okay? So in Standard, everybody says this card's going to be insane for something like Malagos Druid. And while that might be the case in Standard, I don't think you need that for combo Druids in Wild, right? The problem combo Druids have in Wild is they're weak to aggro, and they're weak to Dirty Rat. This doesn't solve either of those two problems. In fact, it actually makes you worse against aggro because you can't run Oaken Summons, right? So I don't think this card's going to be seeing play in stuff like Malagos Druid or Azalina, Togwaggle Druid. Where I think this is actually going to see play is it could see play in Jade Druid, potentially, right? You can go like Jade Behemoth in this, or Aya in this. Like, that's still pushing it, because I still think you want to be running Oaken Summons in Jade Druid. But where I'm really excited for this card in Wild is for, like minion-based Druid decks. Those two exist, believe it or not. But I'm excited for stuff like this in, like, Tiger Druid, right? Or just, like, a mid-rangey, like, tokeny Druid, right? Double Violet Teacher, maybe. Double Arcane Tyrant, maybe, after an Ultimate Infestation. Like in Tokeny Druid, I like it in Tiger Druid. I think it's going to be really, really good card for those minion-based decks, right? Again, I don't think it's going to go in combo Druid decks, but I think this card will see play. Whether those decks will be, good enough to be top-tier meta decks, probably not. But I think this card does see play in those sorts of decks. Floop's Glorious Gloop. Alright, this is probably the best named card in the set. Alright, this card's insane. I love it. And then let's talk about the actual card itself. Whenever a minion dies this turn, gain 1 mana crystal this turn only. The fact that it says whenever a minion dies, right? So you can combo it with Poison Seeds. You can combo it with when you're playing like Token Druid against some other sort of mid-range deck, right? For each minion that you trade off, you're getting potentially 2 mana. I think this card's absolutely insane. It's probably the best Druid card, and Druid got some really, really good cards. I think this card's absolutely nuts. You can go Floop's Glorious Gloop into Poison Seeds, into UI, or, you can do a bunch of crazy crap with this, and this is not what Druid needed. Druid did not need more ways to manipulate mana. I think this card's going to be insane. This probably goes in your combo Druids as well. I think it's going to go in most sort of Druid decks. Like, maybe not Aggro Druid, but who plays Aggro Druid? I think it's going to go in stuff like Token Druid. I think this card's insane. I think the problem is going to be, what cards are you cutting? You only get 30 cards for a deck. I think this does reach the 30. I think it's one of the best 30 cards. I think it's really, really good. Yeah, like, you combo with removal, Poison Seed, Swipe, Starfall if you want to run Starfall. I don't think you should be, but I think the card's nuts. I think the card's absolutely insane. So, I really, really like this card. I think it's one of the best cards in the set. It'll definitely see play. I think the problem's going to be trying to find like a good 30-card list for Druids. But I really, really like this card. I think this card's really good. Dream Petal Florist. 7 mana, 4/4. At the end of your turn, reduce the cost of a random minion in your hand by 7. So this obviously is going to combo with the next card we're going to talk about, the Psycho Melon. I think this card's definitely geared towards Standard a little bit more than it is Wild, obviously. I'm not seeing any sort of use for this in Wild, actually. Right? In Standard, you play the Psycho Melon, you're going to, draw this, you're going to draw your Malagos, and you're going to draw, like, your Lich King, right? And then you play the Dream Petal Florist on 7, discount one of the 2 cards, play the other card on 8. Like, I think it's going to be really, really good in Standard. I do not think it's going to be good enough in Wild. I don't see any reason that you're going to be wanting to run this card. To be honest with you guys, I'm not seeing a use for it. We have Aviana and Kun in Wild. We don't need to mana discount our minions because Aviana does it for us. So I'm not seeing a home for this currently in Wild. So I don't think this sees play. Everybody's favorite card of the expansion if you play Wild. Juicy Psych Melon. A 4 mana spell. Draw a 7, 8, 9, and 10 cost minion from your deck. So in case you guys don't know the Togwoggle combo in Wild, it's Aviana, a 9 mana minion. Kun, the Forgotten King, a 10 mana minion. Aviana, King Togwoggle, an 8 mana minion. And then Azalina Soul Thief, a 7 mana minion. Right? So this is 4 mana, draw your combo. I think it's insane. I think you can make it a more minion heavy list, right? To make it so you're not having to cycle as hard, because as long as you hit this card, you have your combo by 10 mana, right? And so you can run a lot more defensive minions as well. It gives you more immunity to Dirty Rat. I don't know. I think this card's pretty good. I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, don't overreact. I think this card you are able to overreact to, because this is literally 4 mana, draw your combo, and then your combo is pretty much win the game. So, I don't know. I think this card's nuts. I think the meta is going to be a Dirty Rat Deathlord meta again, because I think Togwoggle Druid's going to be everywhere. I don't know. This card's a slow against aggro, but Oaken Summons is low-key busted. With Ironwood Golem, I think the card... it's not going to get as much attention in Standard as it is in Wild, because they don't have Aviana and Kun. We do. I think this card's absolutely insane. I'm not sure what or why they printed this card, but I think this card's absolutely nuts. So next up, we have Mulch Muncher. I think I got that word right. 10 mana, 8/8, Mech. Rush. Costs 1 less for each friendly treant that died this game. So Blizzard, their new theme for Druid this expansion is treants. So they released, I think, 4 cards involving treants. But in Wild, we also get things like Soul of the Forest, which is standard. But then you also have Living Mana, which counts. And then you have Poison Seeds. So those all count towards Mulch Muncher. So I think in Wild, it's really, really easy to get this really super low-costed. This is going to go, obviously, like, the Treant decks are going to be kind of, Token Druid. It's not going to be in, like, Combo Druid or anything like that. But I think this card's nuts. If Treant Druid is a thing, this card goes in it. This card's one of the best cards in Treant Druid. The problem is Token Druid ever better than any other slow Druid archetype? Probably not, right? When I was playing Token Druid, I was still losing to Malagos and to Aviana Kun, Togwoggle. So I was still losing all those kind of things. Token Druid's still fun. It's not the best slow Druid deck in Wild. But this, like, the Treant kind of, theme, I think is going to be the main token archetype in Wild. Is it good enough to play? I don't know as an archetype, but this card definitely, it goes in that deck and is one of the best cards in that deck if it is an archetype, okay? The next card for the Treant archetype is Tending Tauren. Wow, they've got some really weird names in this set. 6 mana, 3/4, give your minions, choose one, give your minions +1/+1, or summon 2 Treants. So it's basically baby Cenarius. You run this alongside Cenarius. I would say, like, if you're going to run one, you're probably running the other. It's a really, really crappy body. So it's 6 mana, 3/4, terrible body. So the thing is, then is the text super worth it? Give your minions, other minions +1/+1 is it's okay, right? You can say that's like 1 mana. And then summon 2 Treants is 3 mana. So that's 4 mana. And then it's on a 3/4, which is a 3 mana body. So it's okay. I don't think this will see play in Treant Druid because we have things like Mark of the Lotus, which is just 1 mana, and it's insane because it has the 1/1 effect. Like, the reason you don't see Scenario Scene play is because it's super slow, right? The buff, even though it's a really, really nice buff, it's really, really slow. I don't think this is going to see play in Wild, even if Treant Druid's a thing, because we have Mark of the Lotus, and because, like, you just have other ways, better ways to summon Treants. I don't think this sees play. Even if it's a good, like, even if Token Druid's good, I don't think this sees play. That's my personal opinion, though, in Wild. And then we have Dendrologist, the third out of the 4 Treant cards. 2 mana, 2/3, solid body against aggro. Bonus against control decks or slower decks. If you control a Treant, discover a spell. This is really, really nice. A lot of Druid cards a lot of Druid spells, rather, are removal. Like, even stuff like Bite or, like, Claw act as pseudo removal. You have a lot of cards that ramp, a lot of cards that draw you cards. And then you have some pretty crappy, like, random things like Recycle or Tree of Life. But because this is Discover, I really, really like it, because you get to choose the random spell that you're getting. This is probably really good. Like, this probably goes in your Treant Druid decks. It's just solid body. I think it's a pretty good card. Again, this all comes down to, is Treant Token Druid playable? And if it is, this probably slots in. The only downside is there's not really a reliable way to make a Treant on 1. So you never really get to curve out with this card. Like, play it 2 mana, 2/3. Like, you're never going to get value against aggro with this if you're playing it on 2. But against, like, in general, you're kind of wanting to, Wild Growth on 2, right? So it's not the end of the world, not being able to play this on 2. I think it's still just solid card, and it slots in if the archetype is playable. And then we have Gloop Sprayer, 8 mana, 4/4, summon a copy of each adjacent minion. So this is by far and away a win more card. I don't know what to say. Like, I don't think it's good at all, right? Paying 8 mana, so it's probably the only thing. I say that, but then you have the legendary spell, so maybe it's not the only thing you're doing this turn. But like, you want to play this in, like, a Druid deck with a bunch of big boys. And if you're getting, like, a Lich King and a 9-drop to stick anyways, like, you've already pretty much won the game. So this is so win more. I don't see a world in which this needs to play, so I'm going to say this is safe to dust. You only get 5 dust, you might as well keep it in case it is good, but it's 5 dust. Like, I don't think it's going to see play at all. So next up, we have Landscaping, 3 mana Druid spell, summon 2 2/2 Treants. So this is essentially 3 mana 4/4, which is, pretty good stats for 3 mana. So off the bat, it's pretty solid. Usually when it's split across 2 bodies, that's not something you want, because it's very easy to trade into against something like an even Shaman. But in the deck that this is going to go in, you want the token synergies, right? So I think this card's just solid. I think this goes in, your Treant Druid. Again, this comes down to, is Treant Druid good enough? But if it is good enough, this is another card that's just, it's a solid card. It's a 3 mana 4/4, right? That it's going to see play. I think this card's, good. And then we get to Biology Project. This is, the third scariest Druid card, and, still up there with, the top 10 cards of the expansion. So Druid gets 3 of those, I think, at least. Biology Project, 1 mana. Each player gains 2 mana crystals. This card is scary as crap, and really hard to evaluate, right? So it's either going to be really, really, really good, which is not good, or it's going to be really, really bad. An important thing to recognize here is that you're gaining 2 full mana crystals, so you can use them immediately. So turn 1, you can go Biology Project Wild Growth, right? Consistent opening that can happen. And then the next thing you know, turn 2, you're at 5 mana, and like, what? That's not fair. And then you can Nourish and Wild Growth again, and then you get to UI on turn 3, which is absolutely busted. That aside, that's like dream case scenario. It's still super strong ramp. And in combo Druids with Psych Melon, you're just trying to get to 10 mana as fast as you can because you draw your combo with a 4 mana card, right? So it all depends on how useful is the mana for your opponent, correct? my thing is most of my opponent's decks aren't built to have, you know, ramp, so they're not gonna be they're not gonna mulligan. Oh, my opponent has double biology project. I'm gonna be able to play this 4-drop on turn 1. So they're not, you know, so it really depends. I just don't think like this card's really really hard to evaluate, right? It's either going to be really really good, and that's going to cause Combo Druid to be even more impressive than it already will be, or it'll be, you know, not as good as everybody's hyping it up to be. I'm leaning that it's going to be good because Rampant Druid's good, and that Psycho Melon or the Psych Melon card is really really good. So because Psych Melon's a card, because Ultimate Infestation's a card, I'm going to say this card's really good, and we'll see play. I'm hoping I'm wrong, and I'm hoping Druid's just not as good as everybody thinks it's going to be. That's what I'm hoping. I don't know. Hopefully Druid's not as good, but yeah, exactly. Nobody's going to be mulliganing. Nobody's going to be keeping a 5-drop, 4-drop in their opening hand because they're like, oh, my Druid opponent's going to have Biology Project. Because if they don't, then it's a dead card, right? So, yeah, that's it for Druid cards. Okay. So, now we are on to Hunter. Hunter got some really, really cool stuff this expansion. I'm excited to see what they can do in Wild. So, probably up there with the coolest names of the set, we've got Flark's Boomzooka. What a cool name. 8 mana legendary spell for Hunter. Summon 3 minions from your deck. They can attack enemy minions and then die. So that means you can't summon... It's not like Recruit, right? So you can't summon like a Devil Sword, King Crush, and then hit face, right? They have to trade into minions. Where I see this seeing play is in like a slow sort of N'Zoth Hunter, right? You can pull stuff like Hymanes or Sylvanas or Katharina itself. Then you get to attack, you get insane value out of them. You can, you know, feign death in combination with this. You can play dead in combination with this. I think this card is really, really good, but not in any of the current builds of stuff like Recruit Hunter or like slower decks of Hunter. Like, there's going to need to be tinkering with Hunter list. And Hunter hasn't been good in Wild for a long time, so nobody's really been playing Hunter. So there's not really like a solid idea of like, this is exactly how I want to build this deck. I think this card's going to be pretty good. As long as you're not pulling N'Zoth, right? I think it'll be okay. I don't think it's going to be as busted as like the Druid cards or like... It's not going to be game-breaking by any means, but I think it's just a solid card if you can find, you know, a solid combo to go with it. I don't think it's the best thing, but I don't think it's, like, the worst card to get off, you know, to open up in your packs, right? Like, it's still playable, potentially. I think it's okay. I think it's not terrible. So, they die after attacking, not at the end of the turn. I mean, they die no matter what. So, like, if you pull eggs, I'm pretty sure the eggs die. That's what I believe. So... That's what I believe. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that, like, if you pull eggs, for example, the eggs will die and they'll pop. So, that's my belief, at least. Based off. And next up is the next Trash Hunter Legendary to be revealed. They always get a really crappy one, which really, really sucks because Hunter needs help. And the Boommaster Flark, 7 mana, 5/5, Battlecry summon 4/0/2 Goblin Bombs. Goblin Bombs are 0/2s that deal 2 damage to your enemy hero. Think Leper Gnome, right? This card, like, in Hunter with mechs, because you have Metal Tooth Leaper, you want to be sort of an aggressive deck, right? Mid-range at the slowest. I do not see a world where your mid-range mech hunter tops out at Boommaster Flark. Like, why would you play this over Dr. Boom, right, for example? So... Next, I'm thinking, is there some sort of combo that you can do with this? And with, like, an Emperor tick, you can do, like, Umbra, Baron Rivendare, or, like, Umbra, Boommaster Flark, Feign Death for, like, 30 damage, but you have, better combos you can be running if you want to do, like, an OTK combo in Wild for Hunter. So I like, especially in Wild, this is not gonna see play at all. Like, if you can make the argument like, yeah, I can Boommaster Flark and Metaltooth Leaper on 10, and I get like a 5/5 with 3/3 and then 4 2/2s that deal damage. But like, if that's your game plan and you're at turn 10 and you haven't won already, you're probably not in a very good spot. So I don't see any world where this sees play. It should be a pretty safe 400 dust. Or 1600 if you're that unlucky. So next up, we have Necro Mechanic. 5 mana, 3/6. Your Death Rattle's triggered twice. So that card text might seem similar to you. That's because it's pretty much the same thing that Baron Rivendare. 4 mana, 1/7 legendary. I like this card a lot better, to be honest, than Baron Rivendare. The reason I like that is because in aggro matchups or board-centric matchups, you're not saving Baron Rivendare for combo, right? You sometimes need to tempo him out. This, while it costs 1 mana more, has better stats, right? Better stats for fighting for the board. So I like the 3/6 stats better, and this is an epic, so I get to run 2 of them, which means it's more consistent with my Death Rattle-y combos that I want to potentially do. I don't think this is going to go in any sort of like OTK combo-y Death Rattle-y Hunter. I think this is like a solid like Death Rattle mid-range Hunter card, right? I think it's solid. I don't think it's great. But like mid-range Hunter like needs help, and this card I think slots into that. Like maybe Egg Hunter will run this potentially, because you can combo it with like Feign Death and then like get 2 5/5s, for example. I think this is just straight up better than Baron Rivendare, in my opinion. Unless you're running like some sort of OTK combo, and then why are you playing Hunter? Will the card see play? It depends on if the mid-range Death Rattle-y Hunter sees play. I don't know. But I think solid card, okay card. Depends. So if you open it, don't immediately dust it. Yeah, that's also really important to note. Thank you, Jost. This does say Death Rattles triggered twice, rather than apparently Baron Rivendare's only minion Death Rattles. What? Like, I don't think they have any weapons that have Death Rattles, but yeah, Frostmourne for Lich King, I guess, if you're that lucky. But yeah, I think it's cool. I think this card's pretty good. Okay, Goblin Prank. 2 mana spell. Give a friendly minion +3/+3 and rush, and it dies at the end of the turn. So again, this is sort of like PO for Hunter. The only benefit to this is like you can play like a 1-drop and then this and then attack with it, so it doesn't have to stick to the board, like it did in Warlock Zoo. I mean, just comparing it to PO, this card's bad. Like it's, the only place I can see this thing play is in like in an Egg Hunter, but then you have your own ways to proc your eggs. I think that this card's just not good enough. Like you go Coin Nerubian, Egg on 1, Goblin Prank on 2. I don't know. I don't see a world where this sees play. It's just a bad power overwhelming. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think this is bad and save dust. So next up, we've got Spider Bomb, 3 mana, 2/2 mech, with the text Magnetic, Death Rattle, destroy a random enemy minion. So Deadly Shot is a Hunter spell, 3 mana, destroy a random enemy minion. So this is a 2/2, like a free 2/2 with Deadly Shot. The thing is Death Rattle, but that's not really a huge deal in Hunter because they have a bunch of Death Rattle synergy anyways. So my concern, right, is with the 3 mana Magnetic, it's a 3 mana 2/2 buff, basically. So you need early game mechs, so you're going to be running stuff like Mech Warper and Annoyatrons and stuff like that. My thing is, do you need a Deadly Shot in that sort of deck? I mean, it might be okay to get past taunts, for example. But as much hype as this card got, I don't think this card's gonna be good enough to see play. Alright, don't get me wrong, like I think it's an okay card. It might see play in Standard, for example, but I don't see a world where like Mech Hunter in Wild wants to play this card. I'm not seeing like it's just not aggressive enough, right? for wild, is what I'm thinking. That's my gut instinct on this card. I might be absolutely wrong, because the death rattle is pretty nuts, right? But in a meta with, you know, even shamans, like, I'm also predicting a lot of silence in the new meta. I'm not sure that this card's going to be, you know, aggressive enough. Like, I don't want to spend 3 mana for a 2/2 buff, right? Because the death rattle doesn't go off immediately. So, I'm not sure. So we'll see. Alright. Next up is a really interesting card. So this card is going to synergize with cards like the Spider Bomb, for example, right? It's like 2 mana, 2/1, Fireworks Tech. Battle Cry, give a friendly mech +1/+1. It's not bad, right? Because we have a 1 mana mech, 1/1, with the same text. Give a friendly mech +1/+1. So it's pretty good. It's similar to like the Fallen Cleric, for example, right? I think that's a 2 mana, 2/1. Give a minion +1/+1. So you play in Arena. But then you get the bonus, right? If it has a death rattle, trigger it, right? So it triggers stuff like your Spider Bomb, you know, and some other neutral cards. So I think this goes in combination with the Spider Bomb, but that's also like 4 or 5 mana. And again, I'm pretty sure Mech Hunter in Wild is going to be like aggressive in nature. And I think therefore that this card's too slow to combo, you know? Like maybe this slots into like Reno Hunter, and Reno Hunter takes like a mech route, but while I like this card, and I think this card's like pretty good, it might see play in Standard, I don't think it'll see play in Wild Mech Hunter. So next up, Cybertech Chip. Give your minions Death Rattle and a random mech to your hand. Okay, so this is like Infest, which was a 3 mana, give your like Death Rattle, summon a random beast to your hand, or give a random beast to your hand, put a random beast to your hand, whatever, add a random beast to your hand. Infest was way too slow. So this is basically power creep on that. They're going to make it 2 mana. They really want Mech Hunter in Standard to be like mid-range, right? But in Wild, again, I feel like I preach into the choir. I think Hunter is going to be aggressive in nature. I don't think mid-range Hunter is going to be good enough. Especially like mid-range Hunters in Wild is not going to want value that this card provides. So while it's still a lot better than Invest at 2 mana, I still don't think it sees play. So, like, And then next up we have Bomb Toss. 2 mana spell, deal 2 damage, summon a 0/2 Goblin Bomb. So, when I'm comparing this, like, 0/2 Goblin Bomb, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero, like, that wants to be in an aggressive deck. 2 mana, deal 2, is probably, like, good enough to deal with some early game stuff. Is it better than Quick Shot? So 1 less damage, but you summon a 0/2 Goblin Bomb that ultimately deals 1 more damage in the long run. But you lose the card draw potential off Quick Shot. But where I'm actually seeing I'm just not seeing like dealing 3. I think is so important, right? Because you can kill Flame Tongues, all the 1 mana stuff. Flame Tongues, 1 mana, like 1/3s are actually insane. You're gonna need to be able to kill Mech Warpers, which are 2/3s. And you're gonna need to be able to kill Mech Warpers behind Annoytrons, which is gonna be a really annoying opening, by the way. Haha. But like, be ready for Mech, you know, the Mech meta again with a Mech Warper into Annoytron. So you need ways to kill the Mech Warper. 2 damage isn't enough to kill a Mech Warper, therefore I do not think this sees play. This card, on the other hand, I think is the best card that Hunter got this expansion. I think this card is absolutely nuts. 2 mana, 2/2, Venomizer, Magnetic, Poisonous. So on its own, 2 mana, 2/2, it's okay stats, right? But the fact that it's got Poisonous, you can attach it to an Annoytron and then hit with it, right? I think this card's actually nuts. Decent stats, synergizes well with Mech Warper. I think this card's pretty good. I really like this card. I think this is aggressive, right? Lets you trade up when you're playing an aggressive deck and then continue to go face. It's not destroy a random enemy minion because it's not the Spider Bomb, right? And it's not like a death rattle, right? Because you can hit with it multiple times potentially. So this and missile launcher. I think the missile launcher's. All right, we'll get to missile launcher, but yeah, I think this card is really, really good. I think this card will see play in Mech Hunter. I don't know. I think this card's strong. Good card. 5 out of 5. And it's common, so it's cheap. Yay! And then we get Secret Plan. 1 mana spell, Discover a Secret. So again, this goes into like, you know, all the 1 mana Discover a Blank cards, right? That every class pretty much has. The difference between this card and stuff like I Know a Guy and Blazing Invocation and Hallucination, right, is because the card pool is a lot smaller for secrets than it is for, you know, all the taunt minions in the game or all the Battlecry minions that Shamans have access to, right? So I think it's, I'm not sure how many secrets there are. I think there's like 7 or 8 secrets for Hunter. Yeah, I'm not sure how many secrets Hunter has. I believe it's 7 or 8, and you're discovering 3 cards, right? So you get to pick the good spells. You're not stuck with Misdirection and Snipe, but then you can pick another secret, right? So at worst, you're getting like a Bear Trap or an Explosive Trap, or, you know. I think the card's pretty good. Does it go in like a Secret Hunter? Maybe, right? It's a kind of guarantee activator for your Spellstone, Cloaked Huntress, you know, all the secret synergies that Hunter has in Wild. I think this is a good card. So it all depends on like the Recruit Hunter that's, instead of having the egg early game, might shift back to the secret early game package that it used to run. I don't know. I think this is a solid card. It's not, again, it's not game breaking. It's not, you know, one of the best cards in the set, but it's a solid card for Hunter. Potentially we'll see play in Wild. All right. So now moving on to the Mage cards. Mage, one of my favorite classes. I do think a lot of these cards that they got are really hard to kind of get a grip on, because there's a lot of interesting new mechanics that have been introduced. Okay, so this card, legendary spell for Mage, 7 mana, Luna's Pocket Galaxy. Change the cost of your minions in your deck to 1. All right, whenever you do some super crazy effect like that, you have to realize that it's going to be a really, really good card. This spell is insane. It's just, can you afford to have a spell that goes 7 mana, do nothing? Right? And so the only place I see this seeing play in is potentially like Arena Mage deck that's good enough against aggro anyways. And then you run some sort of super insane late game, and then you can go AoE and then play like a 1 mana Lich King, for example, or a 1 mana Dragon Color Alana. I'm not sure what you're playing. You could even potentially run like the OTK Reno list that Bananaramic and Jonara have been playing a little bit on ladder. And it'll allow you to combo better, because then you can get like 6 or 7 fireballs, and then you brand ley line in the same turn, and then you go face all in the same turn. So I think it's really, really cool. Like you could potentially, it's being pointed out that you could potentially play it with Solia. So you get you know, you get a 5/5 in Rena Mage, and then you play this, and then you can play more minions. Like later in the game, they don't change the cost of minions in your hand though, which is the problem, right? So if you've already drawn stuff, like if you've already drawn your combo pieces, it's not very good, right? Again, I think this card has insane amounts of potential. It's going to take a lot of experimenting and messing around with to find a good list that this fits in. My gut instinct is telling me it'll go in Rena Mage, and you can run a more minion-heavy list, right? And then you run your Dragon's Fury package, and then whatever sort of late game you want to run. But again, whenever you see the card text change the cost of your minions to 1, you have to be kind of scared of like the potential synergies that you're going to get. So I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going to find a really busted list that takes advantage of the crazy effect of this card. Yeah, and then we'll all be complaining about that instead of Druid. No, I'm just kidding. Druid's going to be busted. But I think this card's really, really cool. This is the kind of stuff that when they release cards like this, these are the kind of cards that I'm really excited about for Wild, right? Because cards that don't have like clear synergies like obvious to you, and you have to experiment and figure out what's actually good about the card, those are the cards that get me excited. So this card I'm excited for. I'm ready to see what you can do with this deck. So, you know, all your crazy minion shenanigans, you know, let me know, and we'll figure something out. So next up we have the Mage Legendary Minion, Stargazer Luna. A 3-mana 2/4 with the text, after you play the rightmost card in your hand, draw a card. So this is very reminiscent to me of something like Gadgets and Auctioneer, right? You know, continuously cycle through your deck. So my gut instinct is telling me this is going to go in a really aggressive Mage deck with lots of low-cost cards, right? So once you get to the 7 and 8, 9 mana turns and you haven't been able to kill them yet, you can go Stargazer Luna, top deck the Flamewaker, play the Flamewaker, and then go off of like Arcane Missiles, Primordial Glyph, into Frostbolt, you know, something like that. I'm not sure how much value this will get in a slower Mage deck. I also don't know if this, you know, just slots right into one of the regular aggro burn mages that we have. So this is another card that you're gonna have to tinker with list, figure out what works best. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and there's you play Stargazer Luna in like, you know, the Research Project, and you play Cold Light Oracles, and you play like an Arcane Giant sort of list. But yeah, this card, you know, slots into that kind of thing. 3-mana 2/4 body is not, you know, the best tempo if you have to play it on 3. Think like Flamewaker, right? You never really want to be tempoing out Flamewaker unless you already have the board, because you want to take advantage of the effect. So that's the same sort of like kind of conundrum I'm having with this card, because like, yeah, as an aggressive Mage deck, I probably want to tempo this out on 3, but then I kind of, since it's not the best tempo play, I want to also make sure that I'm getting value. I don't know. So I have confused thoughts about this card. Again, this is another one that I'm excited. It has potential. What it ends up working out with, we'll see. I'm not certain that this card's gonna like be super good though. My gut instinct is telling me it's not very good, but I also think that, you know, it'll take some refining of list and you know, some tinkering with to make sure that it's actually bad, right? Because maybe it's good. I don't know. I don't think it's like I don't really think it has pseudotaunt, right? Because you played in the early game, right? You generally have 3 or 4 cards left in your hand, and so you're gonna have to play the top decked one, which most of the time you won't want to. So I don't know. Maybe I'm a lot less scared of this though than I am of Bran or Fandral, right? So I don't know. Maybe, but my gut instinct is telling me it's bad. So we'll see. We'll see what people come up with there. All right. So next up we have Astromancer. Astromancer, I think. 7-mana 5/5 epic. Battlecry, summon a random minion with a cost equal to your hand size. So this is obviously designed for some sort of slow, controlling Mage deck. My problem with the card is 7-mana 5/5 is not very good stats, right? That's why Solia never really took off, right? Because yeah, you get the tempo of a free minion, but it's a 5/5, which is not super impactful, especially late in the game. And then the Battlecry, summon a random minion with cost equal to your hand size. So this, I think, only sees, you know, it only seems good when you're playing another slow control deck, right? And with random minion 8, 9, or 10, it won't even be 10 to be like a 7 or 8 or 9 cost minion, but it's random. So like it slots into Arena Mage. I don't think Arena Mage wants to be running this. I'd rather make sure that I'm running consistent threats that I want to run. Like I'd run Lich King over this. I'd run Ragnaros over this. Hell, I might even run Dr. Boom over this because it's consistent and I have consistent synergy with the card. And if I'm willing to run Dr. Boom over Astromancer, I don't think that this card's going to see play. But like Big Spell Mage doesn't exist in Wild. I don't even know if Big Spell Mage runs this. I don't think the card's very good. I don't think it's going to see play. Should be safe 100 dust. Okay, so next up we have Unexpected Results. 4-mana spell. Summon 2 random 2-cost minions improved by spell damage. And so what I believe this means is, for example, if I have 2 spell damage on the board, this will summon 2 random 4-cost minions. So this is a card that I like. Again, super, super cool, you know, design behind it. So this in combination with the 2 spell damage minions that Mage got this set, they're all even cost. And so my gut instinct is telling me maybe we've got some sort of even spell damage, tempo-y Mage sort of deck in Bruin and Wild. Because you can run like Thalnos, you can run the 2 mana card minion that we'll get to later, the 4 mana spell damage minion. You can run like Vex Crow, Sorcerer's Apprentice. You still get access to Glyph and Frostbolt and Fireball. So I think that's the style of deck that this is going to go into. Maybe it goes in Casino Mage as well. Probably goes in Casino Mage. But that's the style of deck that I see this going in. I don't expect even Spell Mage to be viable. I don't think a minion-based Tempo Mage will ever even be viable, right? Without the even Mage or the even restriction. So I don't think this card's going to be game-breaking. I think this card will be fun to mess around with, though. And I think that if you're running... if you're willing to have fun and you can afford not to dust this card, I'll definitely be messing around with some even Spell Mage, but I don't expect this card to be good. So if you're looking for dust, if you open these in packs, feel free to dust this card. Can it beat Secret Mage, though? Probably not, right? Synergies are insane. And this doesn't have, like, obvious clear-cut synergy compared to the Secret Package. And the Secret Package is a lot more burn-oriented anyways, which I think you need to be. So, yeah. Alright, next up we have Meteorologist. 6 mana, 3/3 minion, battle cry for each card in your hand. Deal 1 damage to a random enemy. So kind of the theme that Mage got this expansion was drawing cards and, taking advantage of that. So maybe we see something like a Mill Mage. But this card, 6 mana, 3/3, terrible stats on the body for the cost. And I don't think the battle cry is relevant. So, like, generally you're going to be doing 6 mana, deal 8 damage to a random enemy. But again, it's a random enemy, right? What if you hit a totem with this? What if you hit the Barnes and not the Lich King from the Big Priest, This card is crap. I don't need to go any further into that. I just don't think this card's very good at all. So next up we have Celestial Emissary. So this is one of the cards that I was talking about in combination with Unexpected Results. 2 mana, 2/1, Battle Cry. Your next spell this turn has spell damage +2. So you can combo this with AoE and Rena Mage, for example. I don't know if you want to be running a 2 mana, 2/1 though. And your AoE almost hits everything anyways. So it's interesting. I don't know if this is playing something like Rena Mage. What I'm looking at, the potential for this card, I'm looking at, again, potential in something like a Tempo Mage, right? The fact that it's only for your next spell means you can't combo with Sorcerer's Apprentice and like a Burn Mage, for example. It might be good enough to combo with stuff like Arcane Blast, I believe is the name of the card, the 1 mana spell that scales off of spell damage. So it'll do 6 damage, like 1 mana deals 6 in combination with this. So potential for Tempo Mage with like the Flame Wakers. Again, that goes like completely all in on the like board-centric Tempo Mage list, which I don't think is going to be good enough. Especially since it's going to have to compete with Odd Rogue and Odd Paladin and potentially like a Token Druid. And of course even Shaman, right? So will those be good enough? Probably not. Maybe some sick memes in even Mage, but I don't think that this card's going to be good enough on its own to warrant keeping. It all depends on whether it's, good enough to run in like the Tempo Mage, which I don't think it will be. So my gut instinct is telling me that this card won't see play. But this is one of the ones that I'm like kind of on the fence about. I can see potential, right? I can see potential with this card. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that's already a problem, Jack Scale, especially for Mage, right? Especially with Mage, since they have Frostbolt, and they have Ice Lance, and they have Fireball, and they have Forgotten Torch. They always have to be wary about printing spell damage minions. That's why they say Malagos is one of the most card design restricting minions cards that they have, right? Because of spell damage +5, right? I don't know. But yeah. I see this in a deck with like Flamewaker and Arcane Missiles and Frostbolts and maybe an Arcane Blast or 2. Similar to like the old school Tempo Mage styles. Again, 2 mana 2/1 body is super weak. So you're using it for the Battle Cry and it's only for 1 spell. I just, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's good enough to see play, but maybe like an even tempo mage, or like if tempo mage, if you want to play it, maybe this sees play. But then why aren't you just running like a Cult Sorcerer 3/2 body that's okay to dump on turn 2, and it's permanent spell damage effect? So I don't know. The more I'm talking about it, the less I'm liking this card. So I'm gonna, hard pass on this card. Next up, we see Astral Rift. I'm really glad that Casino Mages are getting some well-needed support in this expansion. Unstable Portal, but you don't get the discount, but you get an extra minion. I think this card's bad. They're printing this for like Hand Mage, I'm assuming is like their reasoning for this card. I think this card's bad. 2 random minions, especially in Wild, with all the crap minions we have. I think this is actually just like a worse Unstable Portal, right? Because you don't get the tempo swing of the mana reduction. I think this card's bad. Won't see play. Okay, so next up we have Cosmic Anomaly. 4 mana, 4/3, decently statted body. Spell damage +2. So the spell damage +2. Do you guys remember old school Evolved Kobold and how it's somehow still seeing play in the aggro Freeze Mage? This is just straight up power creep on that card. So I think this will actually replace the Evolved Kobold in the aggro Burn Mage. Potentially sees play in Tempo Mage because it's got that passive spell damage +2. Think of it like a mini Malagos, for example. Not nearly as good, but it's like not bad. Any deck that you were considering running Evolved Kobold in, this slots in. But again, like it's an okay card. Again, just takes the place of Evolved Kobold, but outside of that, I don't think it's, you're not shifting, builds of Arena Mage or anything like that to fit this in. So, all right. So next up, we have Research Project. 2 mana, each player draws 2 cards. So this is similar to Cold Light Oracle. I think this card's actually probably the best card that Mage got this expansion. If you're playing an Exodia Mage list, you don't really care about giving your opponent cards. You can even potentially overdraw them. Same thing in like Reno Mage potentially. It's probably a solid card for both of those 2 decks. Mill Mage, if that's ever a thing. Cold Light Oracle's Research Projects duplicate though. I don't know if that'll ever be a thing. But Mill Mage potentially. I say that ironically. I don't think it's actually going to be a thing. But any sort of like combo-y Mage deck probably runs this. I think, even Reno Mage is probably going to run this because they run Book of Specters, 2 mana, draw 3. Maybe each player draws 2 and you're not worried about, not playing this in fatigue because your opponent is drawing 2 cards as well. And if I'm up against like a Reno Lock or a Reno Mage Mirror, can potentially overdraw them cards. It's going to be funny if like cards like this start seeing play though. Because like Cold Light Oracle, like resource management becomes a big deal and you're actually like dumping cards that you don't overdraw. But then in like Arena Mage Mirror, value is key. So, and then you're maybe not getting the full value out of the cards. It'd be interesting to see, kind of how the individual games play out. But I think this card's actually really, really good. Solid card. Drawing cards is nice. I think this card will see play. Slots into Exodia Mage, slots into potentially Reno Mage, slots into any sort of aggressive Mage as well, potentially. Maybe not like the INF Mage, but maybe in like a Tempo Mage, maybe. Just for like consistent card draw, right? Arcane Intellect is better for the most part, since your opponent's not drawing 2 cards, but yeah, any sort of combo-y Mage decks, we're going to be running this card, for sure. Hey, what's up, Narutin? How you doing today? Next up, we have Shooting Star. 1 mana spell, deal 1 damage to a minion, and the minion's next to it. So this is essentially Power Shot, right? Power Shot's 3 mana for dealing 2. So just in combination with something like a Thalnos or a Cult Sorcerer or any sort of cheap, spell damage minion, Mage just has a better Power Shot. Do they need a better Power Shot? I don't think so. They have Volcanic Potion, which is 2 damage AoE. They have Explosive Sheep, 2 damage AoE. Don't need to combo it with any sort of. You don't need to combo with a spell damage minion, which means you don't need to be running a spell damage minion. So yeah, I mean this card's straight up better than Power Shot, technically. But is it good enough to see play? Probably not. I mean, it's worth noting, like, with Malagos, it's, like, 6 damage AoE if you, like, the turn you play Malagos, but then why are you playing Malagos and Mage if you're going for AoE? I don't know. Therefore, I don't think this card sees play. Yeah. So now we're going to move on to Paladin. So Paladin, along with Hunter and Warrior, were the one of the 3 classes that got a lot of mech support. So I'm excited to see all the cool stuff that they got this expansion. Starting with their legendary spell, Kangor's Endless Army. A 7-mana legendary spell. Resurrect 3 friendly mechs. They keep any magnetic upgrades. So there are no mechs with charge, which means that this is not going to be like an anything Paladin sort of card. But my thing is, this seems very anti-synergistic with like the class identity itself, right? Because Paladin's class identity is, spread the board, token base, take advantage of, wide boards and stuff like Tarom, and some AoE buffs and stuff like that. This card kind of goes against that, right? Because if you're playing this card, you're wanting to resurrect, 7 mana, 3 huge minions, right? So I'd be interested to see how that goes. In Wild, I don't think this is going to see play, because exactly what we talked about. You have, Mech Warper or Noitron Piloted Shredder is like your core mech like tribe that's going to go in pretty much every mech deck, and that kind of goes against, Kangor's Endless Army, unless you're running those 6 minions and then all of your other mechs are magnetic and you're relying on sticking the, So I'm not, sold on this card. It's a cool concept. Unless I'm like totally missing the like scope of, really insane mechs that you can build. I'm just like in Paladin, I'm wanting to spread the board. And if I'm spreading the board, I'm not wanting to play this card. So personal opinion, this card's not going to see play. Don't think it's very good. Next up is the Paladin legendary minion for the set, Crystal Smith Kangor. He's a 2-mana 1/2 Divine Shield. So he's not a mech, right? He does have lifesteal. Your healing is double, okay? I think it's important to say that he's not a mech. So he's basically 2-mana 1/2. The low mana cost really makes me think like combo-oriented card. And so you can go Crystal Smith Kangor and Forbidden Healing to heal for a ton. Thinking like Crystal Smith, Kangor, and stuff like, Ivory Knight potentially, Ragnaros Light Lord, Uther's Weapon. So there's, some synergies with the card. So it's going to go in some sort of slow, control-y Paladin, is what I'm assuming, because those are the lists that you want healing in. I honestly wish this card text was a little bit different so that it worked with the Spellstone. They probably did that on purpose because the Spellstone's actually pretty good. The problem is upgrading it consistently. That's always been the problem with the Paladin Spellstone. But I mean, this works with like Wicker Flame, and so I can see this with like a Corpse Taker package for the early to mid game, and then like control Paladin like threats in the late game. My problem with like any sort of control deck that's not one of the 3 Kazakus classes is the fact that you just get outvalued super, super hard by those decks. So because of that reasoning, and because of the fact that this doesn't synergize terribly well with either mechs or the Paladin Spellstone, I don't think this sees play. So while it's really, really cool concept, and I'll definitely be messing around with the card, I just don't think it's going to be good enough to see play. So next up, we've got Glowstone Technician, 6 mana 3/4 epic minion for Paladin with the battle cry, give all minions in your hand +2/+2. I personally love that Paladin continues to get hand buff support, like a year after the expansion dropped, where they introduced hand buffs. I think this card's like compared to like the 5 mana 4/4, where it's a continuous turn effect. It's not as good as that card. Forgot the name of the minion, to be honest. Somebody will tell me about it. But I mean, it's a +2/+2, synergizes well with a lot of the minions that Paladin runs if you want to be running the hand buff. While I think this slots in to like a hand buff Paladin, can you afford to play a 3/4 minion on turn 6? I think it all depends on if hand buff is able to take control of the board early enough. And if you're able to take control of the board early enough, that means you can maintain control of the board. And then you can afford to play a 6 mana 3/4. It's a 6 mana 3/4. You think it's better than Enforcer? I mean, it's and Grimstreet Enforcer is 1 mana cheaper. It's 4/4, and it's +1/+1, and then continuously potentially +2/+2. I mean, the upside that this has over Grimstreet Enforcer is the fact that it's a battle cry, so you can synergize it with Bran. Not sure. This gets buffed as well. Yeah, that's true. So like a 6 mana 4/5 minimum, 6 mana 5/6. 5/6 I think is like the minimum amount of stats that you kind of want to play it. My gut instinct is telling me that it's not going to be good enough, which sucks because that means hand buff Paladin is probably not going to be good enough. Don't get me wrong, I really like hand buff Paladin. I just don't think that this card is enough to bring in the class back, or that archetype back to relevance. So, by far and away, my favorite Paladin card of the set, and potentially one of the better cards, out of all of them in the set, potentially. So, Prismatic Lens, 4 mana spell. Draw a minion and a spell from your deck and swap their cost. So a lot of talk has been about Anyfin Paladin, potentially, right? If you're running Anyfin Paladin, you're probably running like the aggressive mid-rangey list with Anyfin combo. And so therefore, this card's really, really good, right? Because then you synergize and you get like a 2 mana Anyfin, right? And then at that point, you don't care about the 10 mana minion, right? For the most part. But like outside of that, I think you can even go the opposite way, right? And run some expensive minions potentially. Run a little like heavier top end with like a secret package with mysterious challengers in the early game. So like that's another route you can go. That won't be nearly as good as something like Big Priest that can bring threats back continuously. But like that's like another route that you can take this card. This is another one of those cards that you can just like. This card's going to be insane, right? For example, you can run like a bunch of secrets, a bunch of low-cost spells, and you can run like Mech Cthulhu, right? And get like a 2 mana Mech, like 10/10, right? And then you can combo it with like an Equality and Pyromancer, for example. So there's a bunch of crazy crap that you can do with this card. What's the best way to utilize this card? I don't know. You probably don't know. Nobody probably knows. Which is what makes this card really, really awesome, right? Because you get, you have to explore, right? It's not an obvious synergy with the card. I think this card's super, super cool. I think this card will see play. Lots of experimenting. Cards like this are awesome in Wild. A lot better in Wild than they are in Standard. These, like the crazy combos that you can do. Insane. Really, really like this card. Tons of potential. Think it will see play. 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5. Whatever. I know I said I wouldn't do ratings, but 5 out of 5. It's insane. Really good. Next up, we have Shrink Ray, 5 mana Paladin spell. Set the attack and health of all minions to 1. Okay, so this card is insanely good in a Control Paladin shell. Very, very good card in Control Paladin shell. Is it strong enough to bring Control Paladin back? Probably not. Because Big Priest can just resurrect minions at their full value again. And Reno decks can resurrect, and they have their Death Knights, and they have N'Zoth, and they have Banker, and they have Zola. Can you outvalue this control decks? Probably not. It's a really, really good card. Might even see a home in sort of a mid-rangey shell where you're running a lot of recruits, right? Because if you have a bunch of 1/1s, they have a bunch of big boys on board. You can play this card, trade off, board reset, right? So like an Odd Paladin, for example, since this actually might solve, now that I'm thinking about it, might solve problems for Odd Paladin and allow you to build the deck a little bit more greedily instead of having to play like the aggressive 1-drops and 3-drops because you can't fall behind on board as Odd Paladin. This gives you some sort of comeback mechanic for Odd Paladin, which they did not have before. Odd Paladin's one of the better decks in the format. I don't see this card being a 2-of in Odd Paladin, maybe a 1-of. I still think Odd Paladins are good when they're aggressive. Because you snowball board control and you win. But this is a board reset button for Odd Paladin if they need it. I think it's also very, very good in Control Paladin list. I think this card will see play whether it's experimentally or in Odd Paladin. I'm not sure which. I'm not sure if it's going to be like a great card, but I think it will see play of some sort. So, next up we have Anoia module, 4 mana, 2/4, magnetic, divine shield, and taunt. So like Mike Donay has said a million times, this is basically 2 Anoiatrons stuck together that you can stick to something else, like an Anoiatron. I think you need to be sticking it to something else because on its own, a 4 mana, 2/4 divine shield taunt isn't good enough, right? It's not very good. Probably won't see play. If what I'm imagining for Paladin with mechs is like a mid-range mech Paladin with something like a Corpse Taker, right? Because now you have a lot of divine shield, a lot of taunts, more consistent ways to get lifesteal. And then Wind Fury, I mean, I guess you have Group Fu Master. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not sure what you would do for Wind Fury for Corpse Taker. But I'm imagining some sort of style of deck similar to that. Just like a sticky mid-range Paladin list that takes control of the board, doesn't let go of the board, and then hits you in the face. That's what I'm assuming, the Paladin archetype is going to take. Is that going to be better than Odd Paladin and the dude synergies that are available in Wild? Probably not, but it'll be a hell of a lot more fun of a list because you get to play with mechs and new cards. But yeah, if that mid-range mech Paladin's a thing, this will see play, right? Outside of that, probably not. Like, I don't think this goes in like an even Paladin shell. So next up we have Crystology, 2 mana Paladin spell. Draw 2 1-attack minions from your deck. Okay, so while this might not seem crazy synergistic, right? Because like normal lists are going to be running things like Firefly or Righteous Protector, stuff like that. I really like this card. Shoutouts to Odd-Dragon who pointed this out. You get to play this card, pull both of your Bolvars from your deck, right? And because they both 1-attack, they start with 1-attack. Then you can buff them up and go from there. From at that point, can you afford to spend 2 mana if you're trying to have board control for the Bolvars? Probably not. But this is one of those cards in Wild that's just going to continue to get better as more potential synergies come out. I'm sure there are synergies out there that are busted. Like you can pull stuff like like your Stonehill Defenders or your Tar Creepers if you're trying to play a more mid-rangey list. You can thin your deck with Anoiatrons. It's not nearly the power level of Call to Arms. But if there's some sort of crazy synergy, like for example, the Bolvar thing actually turns out to be really, really good. I mean, this card's gonna, break the meta, potentially. But I don't think the Bolvar thing will be good. There might be other, like, I think pulling Stonehills and Tar Creepers and like a mid-range / control Paladin list isn't the worst thing in the world. But like, that's the shell it's going to have to go in. It does not go in an aggressive list. It's got to be mid-range control. But this is another one of those cards. It's going to be really, really good, the more expansions that get released, right? It's one of those cards that, there's going to be some sort of crazy synergy out there that you can take advantage of this card with, right? You can pull stuff like Drakari Enchanter if you're doing some sort of Paladin OTK combo with Leroy and Don Honcho or something like that, right? Like, you can do stuff like that. Any minion that has 1 attack is, synergizes well with its card, which means this card, is one of those cards that has potential. Got a lot of cool stuff that you can do with it potentially. I really, really like this card. Even if it doesn't see play currently, I think it will see play at some point down the line. All right, so every expansion you get an egg card. And so the egg for this expansion is Mechano Egg. It's a Paladin card, 5 mana, 0/5. The egg itself is a mech, which is super cool. Death Rattle, summon an 8/8 Robosaur. I would say this card was hot garbage if it wasn't a mech. Because it's a mech, that means you can magnetize Taunt to it, Divine Shield, attacks, Wind Fury, Rush, to the egg. So the egg itself potentially becomes a threat. The problem is, can you spend 5 mana, 0/5, maybe less if you have Mech Warper stick on the board? I don't think you can. I think this card's insanely slow. If you can get it to stick, you can snowball super hard with the card. The problem is getting it to stick. And I don't think you'll be able to do that. Like, I don't think you can get away with Odd Rogues and even Shamans. and potentially silence running rampant. I don't think you can get away with playing a 5-mana 0/5 and hoping he doesn't get silenced. So, all right. So next up, we have the Paladin secret for the expansion: Auto Defense Matrix, 1-mana secret. When one of your minions is attacked, give it Divine Shield. So the way this actually works with Noble Sacrifice, I think it was confirmed by one of the game developers, was, so let's say I have a Mech Warper on the board, and they get to attack my Mech Warper. My Mech Warper will get Divine Shield, and then the Noble Sacrifice will proc. So I think this is like a solid secret. Hand of Protection's 1 mana. Secrets have the synergies with the Bellringer Sentry and Mysterious Challenger. Does this slot into Secret Paladin over something like a Repentance, for example? Probably not. Maybe in addition to, but you don't really want to be running too many secrets. I think the most important thing is this card actually allows you to, work really, really well. You can play a bunch of 1-mana cards, Skulking Geist, and then, do some sort of crazy combo after the Skulking Geist or the Hemet, for example, Hemet Jungle Hunter. I think that's where this will see play in meme decks. I don't think this is good enough to go into Secret Paladin, for example. I still think Avenge, Get Down, Repentance is like too strong of a combo. Competitive Spirits, actually, maybe this takes the place of the competitive Spirit, but I don't know. I like Competitive Spirit, especially in a Paladin deck. We're going wide. Therefore, I don't think this card's going to see play. Okay. And then next up, we have Glowtron, 1-mana mech for Paladin, 1/3. As you might have been able to tell, 1-mana 1/3 stat lines are pretty busted. And this has the mech tag, so it synergizes well with the whole mech thing that Paladin's got going on. Synergizes well with like Mech Warper and all the crazy stuff we have in Wild. Honestly, whenever I see 1-mana 1/3s, my gut instinct tells me it's one of the best cards in the set. It's probably one of the best, if not the best, Paladin card, depending on how Prismatic Light, I think the 4-mana spell, turns out to be. This card's busted, I think. This card's really, really good. And it's a common, so it's cheap to craft. This card's going to be really, really good. Maybe, I think this might even go in Odd Paladin just as like a 1-mana 1/3, because 1/3s are really, really good. So I get this card 5 out of 5. This card will see play 100%. This card's really, really good. One of the best cards. Yes, like even Dire Maul sees play and stuff like Aggro Shaman, right? Or in Odd Paladin, or in Odd Rogue. Just because 1-mana 1/3s are insane. Like 1-mana 1/3 stat line is really, really, really good. And this has mech synergies, and mechs are generally early game based, right? So you get to snowball from there. I think this card's really, really good. Alright, so next up we're going to hit up Priest. Alright, so the legendary spell for Priest, 9 mana, Xeric's Cloning Gallery. Summon a 1/1 copy of each minion in your deck. Alright, so when this was released, everybody was baby raging, crying, complaining about Big Priest, right? I don't think this card's very good in Big Priest, right? 1/1 copies at 9 mana, like, at that point, hopefully you're rezzing all your stuff and you're winning the game by that point, right? Like, maybe if you've, still have all of your minions left in your deck, generally by turn 9 you'll have drawn like half of your minions. This might be an argument to not play Barnes, but I think you should still play Barnes. I don't understand what people are doing not playing Barnes in Big Priest. So while this may be run in Big Priest, I don't think this is nearly, like, I don't think this is one of the best 25 cards in Big Priest at that point if you're including it in Big Priest. Where I think this sees play is in like a value Death Rattly Reno Priest, right? Not the OTK Spawn of Shadows list, but like a more value-oriented list that's just going for like fatigue game plan, right? So you're playing, Benedictus, and you're playing Xeric's Cloning Gallery with the quest, and you're going to be running, you're going to like pull Sylvanas and Statue and Karen and like a Belcher or, cards like that off of this card. That's what I'm thinking this is going to see play. Instant completion of the quest if you haven't done it. Like, that's the kind of list that I'm seeing this go down. That list will never be good, I don't think, unless you were in like Arena Lock meta. Can you imagine if the deck gets meta? Oh my god. Hour-long games. Z Z Z. So boring. But um, but those are the style of decks that I think this goes into. Uh, I don't see it, being a really good card in Big Priest. This is a really cool card. Don't get me wrong, this is a really, really cool card. But I don't think it's nearly as busted as everybody thinks it is. And I think this card, not nearly deserving of the hype that it's getting. So, but yeah. Feel free to dust it, or if you want to play Reno Quest Priest, go for it. Okay. So next up we have the Priest Legendary Minion, Zarek Master Cloner. So 6 mana 5/5, Death Rattle. If you've cast any spells on this minion, resummon it. So 6 mana 5/5, not very, very good stats, right? My problem with this card is you're gonna have to play this later in the game, right? So that you can make sure that you're getting value off the card. Because 6 mana 5/5 is not something you want to be tempoing out because it's not very good. There's not very many cards that you can combo super easily with this. Like there's Velen's Chosen, Powerword Shield. But if you can get, if you can get it to res once, you're already getting value, right? Twice, 3 times, I think is pushing it. And at that point, how have you not won the game already? I'm not sure what style of deck this is going to go into. Because decks that are running Velen's Chosen and Powerword Shields also kind of want to be running like the Inner Fire package. And like an Inner Fire package, can you afford to play a 6 mana 5/5 that does nothing immediately? Probably not. I think this card's super cool though. Super cool design philosophy behind it. I just don't think it's going to be very good. So next up we have probably the best and coolest priest card of the set. We got Reckless Experimenter, 5 mana 4/6 with the stats Death Rattle minion, or with the text, sorry. Death Rattle minions you play cost 3 less, but die at the end of your turn. So I was playing Egg Priest earlier today. I really, really like the deck. This slots in perfectly into Egg Priest, right? So Death Rattle minions you play cost 3 less. That's insane already on its own. Like 3 less. Like you can play your eggs for free. You can play a 2 mana Carnivorous Cube. You can play a 1 mana Shredder. You can play, a 2 mana Belcher. You can play a 3 mana Sylvanas. Like the combinations, like the crazy synergies you can have with this card are insane. Like the stats on it are like 5 mana 5/6 are like the stats you're going for. It's a 5 mana 4/6. So it's like it's hard to remove for other priests. Not that that's going to be a problem, but like this is a really, really, really cool card. I'm really excited to mess with this card. I really, really like this card. Death Rattle Priest of some sort is going to be insane. Like Egg Priest might be legit. And you can even tempo like with cubes and stuff like that. You can't cube this immediately because the cube won't die if this is not on the board. Something like that. Because it's an aura effect, I believe. But like you can play a 5 mana Reckless Experimenter and a 3 mana Sylvanas, and then you can like death. You don't even need to death, but like then you can even cube the Sylvanas. You can play it with like a Karen and cube the Karen. Like there's some crazy stuff you can do with like this, and cube by itself is insane. You can play it with eggs. You can play it, with card draw if you really, really want to go for some sort of like OTK combo. There's a lot of crazy synergies you can have with this card. I really, really love this card if you couldn't tell. I'm excited to mess with it. I'm excited for a priest minion that, isn't easily abused by Arena Priest or, Big Priest or Inner Fire Priest. Cool new synergy for Reckless Experimenter. 5 out of 5. I think this card's going to be awesome. Alright, next priest spell. 5 mana, Powered Replicate. Choose a friendly minion, summon a 5/5 copy of it. Alright, so this goes with the whole cloning synergy. I think this card is a better fit for Big Priest than the legendary spell. That being said, I don't think you really want to be playing this in Big Priest. I think this goes in something like a Velen Priest, for example, potentially. Like a Velen OTK list, or maybe as a one-of if you're feeling really, really greedy in Big Priest. But I'm thinking this goes, again, with, like, your whole Death Rattle theme, right? You play a Sylvanas, they don't really want to mess with your Sylvanas, and then you can just play this on top of that, for example, right? So, like, or if you cube something, they don't really want to kill the cube, right? Because they don't want to, give you 2 more, Sylvanases or Karens or Belchers, for example. and then you can abuse that, right? So that's where I think this card's going to go. I think it's too expensive to see play outside of that, right? This is a really cool concept. This is a cool theme that they're going for with the cloning. I'm not sure how good this is going to be, right? I'm not sure how good this is going to be. It depends on if that whole archetype is good enough on its own. But I like, you know, this in combination with the Reckless Experimenter and going with that whole kind of combo-y, death battle-y theme that stuff like Hunter has going for it. Or Warlock used to have with Key Block. So, you know, Cube Priest, new meta thing, alright? So next up we have Omega Medic. 3 mana, 3/4 Priest card. Battlecry, if you have 10 mana crystals, restore 10 health to your hero. So this is the first Omega card we're seeing of the set so far. And the Omega, you know, the Omega archetype itself, I don't think is like super great. That being said, I think this is one of the better Omega cards, right? Because you can play it against aggro. It's a spider tank, decently statted body. The problem for me with this card is once you hit 10 mana, the restore 10 health doesn't really matter that much, right? Because either you've won the game at that point against aggro or against slow decks, you don't really need it, right? Like you don't really need 10 health at that point. Plus we also have Reno in Wild. So all that being said, I don't think this sees play. Should probably be Save Dust. So next up we have Extra Arms, a 3 mana priest spell. Give a minion +2/+2. Add more arms to your hand that gives +2/+2. So this card doesn't go infinite. It's technically 2 +2/+2 buffs. Each of them costing 3 mana. Those on their own aren't very good. So you're looking at stuff like this in combination with your Priest Legendary minion, Zarek, or a next card that we're going to see, Test Subject. So those are the kind of cards that you're looking to combo this with, because on its own it's not very good. So it depends on if sort of like a, you know, Miracle Spell Priest ends up being a thing with combination of like Arcane Giants. Or, for example, Dragon Soul. I don't foresee that actually being a thing. Therefore, I don't think this card's going to be good enough to see play. Alright. Poor Primal Fin Champion. So Primal Fin Champion was a 2 mana 1/2 card for Paladin that had the same exact death rattle as this. And this is a 1 mana 0/2 for Priest. So this is the card where you feel free to cycle Power Word Shields on this card, Velen's Chosens. You can even go Divine Spirit Inner Fire on this guy early in the game to keep control of the board if you're playing like a combo Priest list. And then you get your Divine Spirit Inner Fire Power Word Shield back anyways. So I think this card's like crazy strong. Like my gut instinct is that it's going to see play in something like a combo Priest list. If you can find the slots for it. That's the problem we're getting to in Wild, where a lot of these decks, you know, they have 30 really, really good cards. And is this, you know, better than the 30 cards that are already established? Maybe, maybe not. I just like this for the fact that you can... I really like this card because you can go Divine Spirit Inner Fire in the early game in combination with these other early game spells without fear that, you know, if they kill this minion, then I lose the game, right? Because you get those spells back, potentially. Even stuff like if you play this in combination and then you can play Umbra, some way to trigger the death rattle early. So like a Baron Rivendare, for example, and then you get like twice the spells back. So like they're going like a miracle, I guess, spell as well as the cloning kind of routes in this expansion. I'm not sure if that's gonna be good enough, right? To go like a miracle list, but I do think this might be good enough to see play in combo Priest. Definitely something I'll test out. I'm not sure. Not 100% sold on this card, but I think it's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Right, next up, we have Deadringer, a 2 mana minion, 2/1 mech with the Death Rattle. Draw a Death Rattle minion from your deck. I also think this card might see play. Think about this in something like, you know, the combo OTK quest cycle Priest that Kripparrian was actually playing a ton of. You can play this, contributes toward your quest, draws you more minions to draw towards your quest or to draw towards your win con. You can even play this in that value Reno Death Rattle Priest, right? to, you know, give you more cards, more fuel, more hand advantage, right? So I think this card's really, really good. Again, it comes down to, are those quest priest lists actually playable? More than likely, probably not good enough to run, but they're going to be really, really fun and really grindy. And if you enjoy value, you'll enjoy those type of decks. But yeah, I like this card. It's a mech. I'm not seeing any sort of like crazy mech synergies in Priest though. Outside of just like well-setted minions and Velen's Chosen and stuff like that. So I think this card is more for the text on the card rather than the tag mech. That being said, again, I think this goes well in like, you know, that cycle OTK list that's running the quest. And I think like instead of like a polluted hoarder, because you're running a 4-mana 4/2 draw, it's not a very good card. This does, you know, the same thing of cycling a card, but it's 2 mana. So but yeah, I like this card. I think it has a lot of potential. Probably will see play some way or another. Next up, we have 2-mana priest spell Cloning Device. Discover a copy of a minion in your opponent's deck. Okay, so the reason I don't like this card, first of all, I hate the design of this like style of cards of like stealing crap from your opponent. I really hate that, and I hate playing against it. But also in Wild, a lot of our decks have gotten a lot more synergistic, right? So you're running a lot less standalone good cards, right? So yeah, I can discover a copy of my opponent's N'Zoth, but if I'm not running a ton of Death Rattles on my list, that N'Zoth is useless, right? Or I can discover a Gul'dan, or not a Gul'dan, a Mal'Ganis, for example, but because I don't have Gul'dan, that Mal'Ganis is like just a standalone threat. So I'm not seeing too much right now. Like this card's useless against aggressive decks, because first of all, I'm spending 2 mana doing nothing against an aggressive deck. And that means I'm going to be stealing like a 1 or a 2 mana minion from an aggressive deck, which not going to help me in that matchup. So I don't think this card's going to see play. I don't think it's very good, and like hope you're not getting these out of packs. 0 mana priest spell Topsy Turvy. Swap a minion's attack and health. So I really, really like this card. This is a Void Ripper style effect for a single minion. It's a single target effect for 0 mana rather than the 2 mana Confuse. But I really, really like this. Does it go in Combo Priest? Maybe it fits in one of those slots. Maybe it goes in like that Egg Priest, right? So you can go a 3 mana 5/5, for example. But I really, really like this card. I'm wondering, like, I like the design of this card. I think it's good. Can get it off of Shadow Visions pretty consistently, depending on the list you're running. My concern is, does this fit into the best 30 cards of like a Combo Priest list, for example? So like to play around Skulking Geist, for example, instead of like an Inner Fire. But Inner Fire is solid in the early game too. I don't foresee a lot of Geist on ladder anyways. Maybe this is like a tournament tech card, for example, for a Combo Priest, but I don't think this is like crazy strong enough to put it definitely in one of the best 30 cards for Combo Priest. But it's definitely something worth considering, maybe at least a one of. Alright, moving along, we're now on to Rogue. So, Rogue got some weird cards this expansion, but as usual with Rogue, they always find a way, right? I'm excited to see what kind of stuff, you know, they're able to do with these new cards. Starting off with Myra Rotspring. 5 mana 4/2, legendary minion with the battle cry, discover a Death Rattle minion. Also gain its Death Rattle, right? So for example, like, I think it's important to note discover a Death Rattle minion, right? Because you get to discover it, you know, it's a lot better than a random Death Rattle effect. The problem is in Wild, there's a lot of Death Rattles, and a lot of them aren't very good. Like, I think this is like an average card. Where is this going to see play? Probably... it's either going to be a Death Rattle Rogue deck, or it's going to be, like, maybe a card for Odd Rogue, but I don't think it's nearly good enough for Odd Rogue, because you need to be aggressive in that list. Not really value-oriented. Like, this card... I'm confused about this card. Like, part of me wants it to be good, because it's, like, it seems like it's going to be really fun to play against, or play with. Probably not fun to play against. But, like, if you can discover, you know, a Sylvanas, right, as an Odd Rogue, or like even something just as simple as like a what is it called? A Twilight Summoner, I think maybe that's the name. The 4-mana 1/1 Death Rattle, gain a 5/5. Just something like that might be good enough to make it playable in Odd Rogue. You have all the high rolls of an Anubarak, for an example, or potentially Jades. It's like a 5-mana 5/3. I don't know. Probably not good enough to run. Again, Odd Rogue, you want to be super aggressive. This card's not super aggressive. But it might just be like a solid 5-mana minion that you can just play in Odd Rogue regardless. It depends on how consistently you're getting good death rattles. That's something I don't know about right now. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. So next up is the Rogue legendary spell, Myra's Unstable Element. Draw the rest of your deck for 5 mana. Again, this is one of those cards that is either going to be super insanely busted or it's going to suck, right? Similar to some of the Druid cards we saw previously. I think this card has got some insane synergy with, the gang up effects potentially. Like maybe just for like extra gas in Odd Rogue to like, because in Odd Rogue I generally find myself low on cards. Play this card, draw the rest of my deck, and then I have 8 or 9 cards to play with to try to win me the game from there, right? You could also destroy your deck and then go Jays and gang ups, or Cold Lights and gang ups, or like Pogo Hoppers and gang ups, So this card's got a ton of potential. This is another one of those cards where you're going to have to experiment and figure out what's the best way to play with this card, right? And there might not even be one right answer. So I think this is probably good enough to see play in Odd Rogue, just because Odd Rogue suffers for draw, right? And you're aggressive enough, you probably are going to run. If you're running Myra's Unstable Element, you're probably going to fit in like Fel Reavers, for example, and just ditch like the Dr. Booms and the Fungalmancers and just be an aggressive face deck, which it's already pretty good at doing. So I like this card, tons of potential. I think this is probably one of the better legendary cards that was introduced this expansion. I'm kind of scared to see what people do with this card, but I'm also really excited to see what people do with this card. So, alright, so next up we have the epic spell for Rogue, 5 mana, Necrium Vial. Trigger a friendly minion's death rattle twice. Okay? 5 mana is expensive for this type of effect, but it's a super strong effect. So if you can stick something like, Aya Blackpaw, for example, or Sylvanas, or Karen, some of these really, really strong death rattle effects. The problem with this is it is 5 mana, right? Which means you probably want to run Prep. Prep doesn't normally go in these like minion-heavy style rogue list, so maybe you're discouraged from running Prep, but this card's still strong, then you probably want to run it if you're running a death rattle list. So I struggle, 5 mana, again, 5 mana is super expensive, right? Hunter gets to trigger a death rattle once for 1 mana. It's a big difference. Like, are you willing to spend 5 mana on this? I don't know. If you are you running Prep? Are you not running Prep? I don't know. I think this card has the potential to be insane. Is a minion-based death rattle rogue ever going to see play? This is probably the card that you want to do it with. You can play this with stuff like, again, Aya Blackpaw. Cobalt Illusionist is a rogue card that has insane synergy, right? If you're running value death rattle minions in your deck. You can potentially do this with like a Silver Vanguard, right? With the big rogue that Dane's been playing and popularized on ladder. I'm imagining like that style of deck, like a minion-heavy list. So I think this will see play in that style of deck. Does that deck ever, become a top-tier deck? Probably not. But I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, there's potential Malygos combos here with Cobalt Illusionist in this card. But you're going to need Emperor to take some double prep. And at that point, super expensive. Might as well be playing, Emperor Thorson. And I don't know. For those of you that are fans of Burger Rogue, don't worry. They're still trying to give you support. I think this card slots like very nicely into your Test Rogue. 4 mana Academic Espionage. Espionage. Shuffle 10 cards from your opponent's class into your deck. They all cost 1 mana. They cost 1 mana, which is insane. The problem with this card is if you're running this card, you need some sort of a draw engine, right? And they are random cards. So again, you're probably running this in combination with like Sprint and like a test list. So I'm thinking this card is definitely value generation. Like Test Rogue needed that. But, you know, this is another card to slot into your Burger Rogue. Burger Rogue, I don't think will ever be competitive, sadly enough. But super cool card. In combination with Ethereal Peddler, gets all the way down to 0 mana. You know, there's potential with this card. I don't think it's ever going to be good enough, but you're spending 4 mana doing nothing as a rogue without defensive tools. Like, does this see play in Reno? I don't know if this can give you duplicates. But like, if you're running this, you probably need to be running Sprint. I don't know. Again, this goes in Burgle Rogue potentially. Is Burgle Rogue good? Probably not. So, hey, speaking of draw engines, you get the 5-mana Rogue Legendary card. Destroy your deck and then fill your deck with 10 cards from your opponent's class that each cost 1 mana. Mimic Pod would copy the discounted price. So if you Mimic Pod into one of these 10 cards, both of them will cost 1 mana. Alright, next up, Blight Nozzle Crawler. Really creepy name, really creepy looking minion. It's like something out of a horror movie. But it's a 4-mana 2/4 mech. So pretty crappy stats actually for the mana cost. But it's got a pretty strong death rattle actually, and summoning a 1/1 ooze with poisonous and rush. The problem I see with this card is because it's a battle cry, your opponent can decide when to kill this minion, and they'll probably kill this minion when they have the ability to ping off the 1/1 before it's able to destroy a minion. So you need this in synergy with like some other magnetic minions to make it more like durable, but then it's harder to get the poisonous rush minion out. I'm not a fan of this card. The stats are terrible. Rogue is all about tempo. Yes, the poisonous rush gives you some sort of tempo, but it's delayed tempo, and it's potentially tempo that your opponent can get rid of. So not a fan of this card. I don't think it's very good. So next up we have Necrium Blade, 3 mana weapon, 3/2 stat line. Normal stat line for weapons. Death Rattle for this weapon though is trigger the death rattle of a random friendly minion. I think this card is very, very strong. So you can go this on 3 hit, and then turn 4 Cobalt Illusionist and this, right, to get a 1 mana minion. I think this card's insanely strong. It slots well into Death Rattle Rogue. It's one of those cards that gives them like potential to actually see play. I think it's that strong of a card. I think this is like one of those cards that, hey, rogues need weapons. This is a really, really strong weapon, right? I really, really like this card. I think it's one of the better ones of the set, especially for Rogue. I think it's one of the better Rogue cards by far. But I think it's a very solid card. Just curving this into like something like a Shredder or a Cobalt Illusionist on 4 is pretty strong. You get 2 Death Rattles off of your like 4-drop. And it's a weapon, so you get to clear off 2 minions. Solid card. I think this card's really, really good. I don't see a world where this is not seeing play in some sort of Death Rattle Rogue. Again, it goes back, is Death Rattle Rogue good? Probably. This card's pretty good. Like, this might push it over the edge in combination with the card we talked about earlier. But I really like this card. I think this card's good. This is one of those cards that the archetype needs. Alright, so next up we've got Pogo Hopper. 2 mana, 1/1. Battlecry, gain +2/+2 for each other Pogo Hopper you've played this game. So Jade Rogue never took off, so they introduced Pogo Rogue. Probably one of the coolest cards of the set. I'm going to definitely be playing a ton of Pogo Rogue. You can play this, you got Gang Ups, you've got the Lab Recruiter, you've got, Shadow Steps, you've got Shadow Caster, you've got Sonya. Bunch of ways to gain tons of value off this card. I'm excited. They scale a lot quicker than Jade's do because you get +2/+2 rather than just +1/+1 for each. I really like Pogo Hopper. I don't know. I think it's super obvious why. I don't know. plus it's like, look at the art. Like it's a freaking mechanical bunny on a pogo stick. Like, this is one of the coolest cards. I'm excited to try Pogo Rogue. I hope it's gonna be good, because can you imagine beating down players with mechanical bunnies on pogo sticks? I can't think of anything better. I really like this card. Really cool flavor. Like, this is a card that just creates a deck archetype on its own. Love it. I don't want to say it's like really, really good, because I don't know yet, but I really, really like the card itself. But it's definitely going to be a lot more competitive than Jade Rogue, for example. So, depending on how well you think Jade Rogue does in the current meta, I think this card's better than that. Like the archetype of Pogo Rogue is going to be better than the archetype of Jade Rogue. I'm almost 100% certain. Alright, so next up we have Crazed Chemist, a 5-mana rogue minion with 5-mana 4/4. So, pretty meh stats. Combo, give a friendly minion +4 attack, though. So it's Cold Blood on a body. The problem is, it's a 5-mana card. So, like, you think Odd Rogue. Like, I mean, the 5-mana minions you're running Fungalmancers, some of them. You're running Leroy, and you're running Vile Spineslayers, for the most part. And then Skulkers. Skulkers have a really, really, huge impact on the board. My problem is Cold Blood is 1 mana, this is 5 mana, so it's really hard to combo. Odd Rogue is where this would fit, right? But if you think about it, Cold Blood's 1 mana, so that you're paying, it's a 4 mana 4/4 in stats, which is still not good enough to run. That's below vanilla stats. I'm not seeing this card in Wild Odd Rogue. Maybe it's good enough for Standard Odd Rogue. It's not good enough. It's just not good enough. Stats are too bad. And what the effect, while nice, just not worth running a 5-mana 4/4. So I'm gonna say this card's bad. Does not see play. All right. So next up, we see the next addition to the Death Rattle Rogue theme. We got 3-mana spell Violet Haze. Add 2 random Death Rattle cards to your hand. So, I'm assuming this works the same way Discover does, where you don't get stuff from other classes. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Again, in Wild, the card pool is so insanely large that you're not going to consistently get good Death Rattle minions, right? You're going to get stuff like Ticking Abomination, or Regular Abomination, or Explosive Sheep, for example. Stuff that, just isn't good enough to run. Not good enough to warrant taking up a slot in your list for a 3-mana spell that, is not getting you any tempo on the board. Don't think this card's good enough to see play. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of Cholden clips where you get, double Sylvanas or double Mecha Cthulhu or something crazy like that, but I don't think this card's good enough to see play, even in the Death Rattle themed rogue. So, random equals any class, for example, Bear Drake. Okay, thank you, Mason. So you can get other class minions, which makes this probably even worse than Wild, to be honest. Yeah, that just makes the card pool that much larger. Same sort of logic, though. I don't think it's good enough to see play. Yeah, any sort of these random effects in Wild just aren't nearly as good enough as just strong synergistic cards. So next up is the card that Cold Light Oracle probably died for. 2 mana 3/2 Lab Recruiter. It's literally gang up on a 2 mana 3/2 decently statted body. So it's a very, very good card for what it wants to do. It synergizes really well with the legendary spell. It synergizes well with Pogo Hopper, I believe is the name, right? Pogo Rogue. Synergizes well with Cold Light Oracles and Wild. Does this see play in Kingsbane Rogue? Maybe, maybe not. Does this see play in N'Zoth Mill Rogue? Probably. I think this card's insane. I think it's gonna find a home in many a list. You could tempo it out for a 2 mana 3/2 against aggressive decks if you need to. I think this card's very, very strong. I think it's going to have a home in many decks. I think this is one of the best rogue cards, one of the best cards of the set. Honestly, in Kingsbane, my instinct is maybe you don't run it because you don't want to dilute your pool of minions. You want to make sure you're drawing your Shiny Finder, and you want to make sure you're drawing your Cold Light Oracle. But even Kingsbane rogues are running stuff like Goblin Auto Barber and Captain Greenskin for some reason. And I don't see why you don't run this over those two cards. So probably even sees playing Kingsbane Rogue, see playing Mill Rogue, probably sees playing Death Rattle Rogue, probably sees play in like it definitely sees play in Pogo Rogue, probably sees play in Jade Rogue. Like you can even combo this with like a Miracle Rogue style deck with Faldori Striders. I think the card's insane. I think it's gonna see a lot of play even in Wild. I think this card's really good, and it's a common, so it's cheap to get. It's really nice that some of the most busted cards are actually commons for this set so far. Really liking it. I like you can't prep it out like you can Gang Up, and you can only target friendly minions. But I don't think that's a problem because you're never playing Gang Up to target opponents' minions anyways. So like you never want to target like enemy minions with Gang Up. So this is like literally free Gang Up on a stick. So I really like it. Like maybe it's good enough to bring Quest Rogue back. Probably not in Wild because Kingsbane just does what it does but better. Pretty much. And I really like this card. It's going to be very easily abusable in Wild. Kind of scared to see how it gets abused, but I think it's a very good card. 5 out of 5. Definitely will see play. Probably a day one craft if you're any sort of rogue player. Alright. So now moving on to Shaman. So Shaman, probably the biggest winner of the Witchwood expansion because they brought about the class's favorite archetype, even Shaman, right? And Shudderwalk Shaman. Definitely the biggest winner of the Witchwood set. So I'm looking forward to see what awesome cards that they get here in the Boomsday project. So the legendary spell, the Stormbringer, 7 mana spell, transform your minions into random legendary minions. So this is like the evolve mechanic on steroids. But the fact that this costs 7 mana is kind of a big deal. Right? And in Wild, a lot of legendary minions are crap. Especially in this kind of expansion as well. A lot of the legendary minions are like understated. And they all have like super strong like battle cries, which is why they're understated. So evolving or getting random legendary minions is never as good as it sounds in practice, right? Or in reality. I think you want to play this probably if you're going to play it in like the token evolve Shaman style. But then why are you playing this and not even Shaman? Because even Shaman does what that does, but better, right? Like it cheats out expensive minions into play, right? It instead of evolving into random expensive minions. Don't get me wrong, this card's gonna be fun, cool to play with. Probably crap. Not even probably crap. It is crap. Free dust if you need it, if you open this in the expansion. Alright, next up is the legendary Shaman minion. Electra Storm Surge. 3 mana, 3/3 elemental. With the battle cry, your next spell this turn cast twice. So, this is another one of those, like, I'm not sure, does it fit in an aggressive Shaman deck? Does it fit in, like, control Shaman so you can go, like, double Healing Rain if you need to, or, like, double Lightning Storm? Thing is, it does overload you twice. You can, like, double Lava Burst something. I'm not sure, like, where exactly this sees a home. Like, maybe even an odd Shaman, right? Because you get the guaranteed spell damage totem. Not really... Again, I'm not sure where this sees a home, but it's got a really unique effect. It's basically Brand, but for spells. And Shaman has, really good AoE. Not really good. It's got decent AoE. It's got good healing. It's got good burst damage, right? So it's got, a bunch of tools to play with. You can even go this plus, like, double Spellstone, for example, right? I think there's potential synergies here. I'm not sure where best it fits, but it's one of those minions, like many others in this expansion, where like potentially you're going to need to craft new deck list, right? Or alter existing ones, right? Because this doesn't slot into even Shaman, probably doesn't slot into Shudderwalk Shaman, so where exactly does this go? I like this card. I like the design of this card. It's hard for me to tell how good this card's going to be, right? Because, like, you wouldn't use the Spellstone on this, for example, but, like, if you have, like, a Snow Fury Giant on board, or Earth Elemental on board already, or, like, some sort of big minion, it's like maybe this goes in, like, a Control Shaman shell. He can use this on, like, a White Eyes, for example, or a Sylvanas, or, like, maybe a Kel'Thuzad, like, if you have some way for that to stick, right? Not sure. Like, maybe it goes in, like, mid-range Shaman, like, it's tons of potential for the card. Again, it's like Brand, but for spells, right? So it means it's only going to get better as the expansions go on. I think it's a card that you keep. I'm not sure that it's going to see a ton of play immediately, unless somebody finds some way for it to make it good. I like the card. I'm not sure how good this is going to be. So I believe with Bran it still only works twice because of the same interaction with like Murmuring Elemental in Bran, where the battle cry still only goes off twice. So I believe the spell only goes off twice. If it works differently and the spell goes off like 3 times or maybe 4 times, probably not. If it goes off 3 times, then it's a lot better, but I don't think that's how that works. But I still think this card has tons of potential. I'll be messing around with it and trying to like make kind of like an odd overload shaman work or like a control shaman work. Because I think double AoE, double healing is something that shaman could use, right? And then you always have the high roll potential with the spellstone. So I'm not sure. I do like the card though. Don't think it's a must craft, but I think it's going to be a good card. If not now, in the long term for Wild. So next up we have a 4-mana 3/5 Elemental, Thunderhead. After you play a card with Overload, summon 2 1/1 Sparks with Rush. Okay, so I like the flavor of this card. I don't think the slots into Even Shaman though, because like what cards are you playing with Overload? You're playing Crackles, you're playing Totem Golems, and you're playing 7/7s, and I guess nothing from Jade Claws. So those are like your 4 Overload cards, unless I'm like forgetting cards. 4-mana 3/5, like a 3/5 is like 3 mana's worth of stats, like pretty much. The 2 1/1 Sparks with Rush though are pretty cool, because it allows you to fight for board super effectively. I don't know. I just don't think it's powerful enough, right? The 2-mana 1/1s, or the 2 1/1s, have synergy with stuff like Flame Tongue Totem, stuff like that, but then you're like, this has to stick on board or you're waiting until later in the game. I'm not sure that this is good enough to see play. I just don't think it's strong enough. I don't think it's powerful enough, right? Like if this was like a 4-mana 3/6, probably like a lot better. I just don't think this is strong enough. Probably won't see play. Alright. So Shaman gets another pretty insane 2-mana 2/3 card here. This is the next Omega card. Omega Mind. 2-mana 2/3. Battle Cry. If you have 10 mana crystals, your spells have lifesteal this turn. So against aggressive decks, right, you get a 2-mana 2/3 body. Not bad against aggro. It's actually pretty good against aggro. So if you draw this in the early game against aggro, you can play it. My problem is, like, in late game, you can use this to stabilize with a combination of like a Volcano or Lightning Storm, right? If you manage to make it to turn 10 against aggro and you're like surviving against a top deck, right? My problem is, like, this card's, I feel like it's pretty much dead against control decks, right? So like maybe you use this in combination with Electro Storm Surge, for like the double AoE Reno heal, basically. Like it's a battle cry, so it has synergy with Shudderwalk potentially, but I don't like, this card's like really hard to assess, right? Because it's a solid body against aggro in the early game. It's great against aggro in the late game, but then if you've made it to late game against aggro, most of the time you've won the game already, and then it's dead against control, right? Therefore, I've kind of talked myself out of how this card feels. It seems insane on paper, but the more I'm talking about it, I just don't think the card's very good, right? Like, even Shaman, you don't need the lifesteal on the spells. Even Shaman has better 2-drops to play on too than a 2-mana 2/3. But yeah, like, I don't see this seeing any play. I think this card's, I've talked myself out of it. I think this card's bad. So yeah, I actually don't think this card's very good. Alright, so next up we have the 6-mana spell, Eureka. Wow, my voice just like went out. Eureka. So summon a random copy, or summon a copy of a random minion in your hand. So, I mean, you could play this in something sort of like a Malago Shaman, but then why are you playing this in Malago Shaman instead of Ancestor's Call, which I think is just better, unless you want to run it for like redundancy's sake. Where I think this sees a home is in something like a control big shaman list, right? Where you can summon a copy of a Lich King in your hand, or a Kel'Thuzad, or Ragnaros, or a Yashara that's in your hand for 6 mana. So it's like similar along the same lines as Shadow Essence, right? The problem is you don't get the resurrect effects really that Priest has, but Shaman has stuff like Ancestral Spirit and Reincarnate, and access some really powerful death rattles as well. So I think this card's actually going to be really, really good in Big Shaman. Is Big Shaman good enough to run? I mean, maybe with this card, right? You can run double Ancestral Call as like a dirty rat effect against combo druids and to cheat your big boys into play. I don't know. I like this card. Big Shaman, it's pretty good, right? Just an extra Sylvanas, an extra Wide Eyes, an extra Lich King. For 6 mana, it's pretty good. And it's a copy. It's not 5/5, so it'll be 6 mana summon an 8/8 Lich King, 6 mana summon a 4/12 Ysera, or a Sleepy Dragon, or like a 4/8 Taunt, right? It's not a 5/5. So I really, really like this card. I think Big Shaman could be a legit thing. Double Ancestral Calls, double Eureka, some card draw, some lifesteal, some AoE, and then big boys, right? So I don't know. I really, really like this card. I think it's good. If Big Shaman sees play, this helped bring it back to the meta, I believe. Yeah, I really like this card. I think it's cool. Yeah, you can Eureka into Spellstone. Beautiful curve because this doesn't have any overload on it. So yeah. Alright, so next up we have a 4 mana Elemental. 4 mana 3/4. With the Battle Cry, draw a spell from your deck that costs 5 or more. So for Storm Chaser, this is like it's a tutor card, right? For big spells that you might be running. So when you look at the big spells that Shaman has, you've got Volcano for 5, you've got Spellstone for 7, and then you have like Every Fin is Awesome for 7, and then you have I think Bloodlust for 5, right? Those are your big cards, right? I think this could be a solid card in like a Control Shaman shell, or even like a Malygos Shaman spell, Malygos Shaman shell, because it's pretty much guaranteed draw a Volcano to have available on turn 5, right? Or guarantee the Spellstone if you're running that. I could see this potentially in Murlocs to like tutor out your Every Fin is Awesome. Yeah, it can actually tutor out Eureka as well, the new spell that's being introduced for Shaman now. So there's 5 possibilities. I think it's a little too slow for your like mid-range sort of decks. So decks like Every Fin is Awesome and Bloodlust probably aren't good enough. So it's going to be in a deck with Eureka, which I actually really, really like that, or Volcano to tutor it out, so it's good against aggro. Or even the Spellstone, because the Spellstone doesn't upgrade with the Overload until it's in your hand, right? So, I mean, I really like this card. I think it's going to go in the slower builds. Do I want to be running a Storm Chaser if I'm running Eureka? Maybe, maybe not. Make sure I play the Storm Chaser first. I don't know. I really like the card. Might be too slow, but it's got a really strong effect, right? It's to tutor a Volcano, tutor a big spell, big impactful spell that'll help you later in the game. So I like this card. I think it has potential. Probably will see play in that Big Shaman list at least, right? Maybe a Control Shaman list. So I like it. All right. So next up we have a 1 mana spell, Voltaic Burst. Summon 2 1/1 Sparks with Rush, Overload 1. So this is basically Lost in the Jungle, right? Summon 2 1/1s for 1. And then at the cost of 1 Overload, you get to have Rush. I don't think that's impactful unless you're playing it on like turn 3 with like a Flame Tongue Totem, for example, because I mean, just playing this on 1 limits you on turn 2. I can see this going in like a tokeny that tokeny evolved mid-range Shaman. I think it's strong. It's not nearly as good as stuff like Lost in the Jungle or Firefly or things like that. Because of the synergy with the deck. I mean, you get Flame Tongue Totem, but I think that's pretty much it. I don't think the Sparks... Are the Sparks themselves elementals? But then they don't get... I don't think they count towards, like the Servant of Calamos or Calamos himself, because they're not playing elementals. I mean, I think this is in line with like power level of Zap, for example, and Zap doesn't see play. so I don't predict this will see play. I don't predict that like token evolve Shaman's going to see play anyways. So I'm going to say that this isn't very good. Probably won't see play. So next up we have the 2-mana 2/2 elemental Menacing Nimbus. The battle cry, add a random elemental to your hand. So actually, in fact, when people were playing a lot of this Even Shaman at the beginning of this expansion, I was playing a lot of elemental lists, right? Focusing on Kalamos top end with Ragnaros, double Fire Elemental with Grumble, a lot of value elementally list. And that list was struggling with a strong 2-drop elemental. So this slots in nicely to that sort of list. It's solid elemental synergy, nothing too flashy, but I think it's just a solid card. Is it good enough to make the elemental Even Shaman the go-to list? I don't know. I really don't. I mean, Sea Giants versus strong elementals. I'm not sure. I do like this card. I do like Shaman getting more elemental synergy. I would like to see just like an elemental Shaman list be strong because I think it's such a cool archetype for the class. I don't think this fits into like your normal Even Shaman list. I think it will fit into like an elementally Even Shaman list. But then you get the downside of like all the random elementals that are in Wild. But the random elementals are kind of limited to neutral Shaman and Mage for the most part. And the class elementals actually aren't too bad for the most part. So, I mean, I think this card has potential. I'm going to play a lot of the elementally Even Shaman list. But outside of that, like, I'm not sure the elemental Even Shaman list is the way to go. Like, this synergizes well with things like Earthen Might and Kalamos, right? And Ragnaros, and like the whole elemental package in Wild, right? So, I mean, I like the card. Are random elementals like terrible? Probably not, right? Not as bad as like random taunt minion, right? So I like this card. I don't think it's busted. I don't think it's game breaking. It's just like a solid card. Even for Wild, right? It fits one of those niche, whatever the word is. I'm foreign, sorry. One of those cards where you're just like, I wish like I had this sort of card, right? It filled this slot nicely. Nothing flashy. It's just a solid card. Is it going to be game breaking? Is it going to be like the next meta defining card? Probably not. But I do think it's solid, and I think it's a good card. Good card. All right. So next up, we have a 2-mana spell, Elementary Reaction. Draw a card. Copy it if you played an elemental last turn. So this is similar to like Mimic Pod for Rogue. It's 1 mana cheaper, so it can fit in that elemental Even Shaman list if you want. Even Shaman does normally lack draw, so there is that. This might actually push Even Shaman like alongside that 2-drop to be more elementally focused because you do normally lack card draw. Even Shaman, depending on how desperate you are for this card. You're probably not desperate enough for this card to actually shift towards the elemental list, but I think this is solid. I don't think it's nearly as good as something like Earthen Might, for example, or just playing solid 2-drops. But I like the card. Again, it's just one of those solid cards that if I'm running Even Shaman and I'm running a ton of elementals, maybe it's worth it to run this card, right? I do like it's cards like this, right, that I really enjoy playing Wild for, right? Because like if I want to take Even Shaman down, like if I want to play Even Shaman and I want to experiment, with like a mech package, for example, or an elemental package, or like the default, Totem Jade package, right? In Wild, we're getting to the point where you can, build different versions of each list, right? Because you have, all these strong cards now for each archetype. It all depends on which archetype's stronger. It's just going to be the meta pick, but I like this card. I think it's solid. Nothing too game breaking though, but I do like the card. All right, and last but not least for Shaman, a 0-mana spell, Beakered Lightning, deal 1 damage to all minions, overload 2. So yes, this costs 0 mana, but why the hell are you playing this card when you could just play Maelstrom Portal, which is 10 times better? I'm just gonna leave it at that. Play Maelstrom Portal. This card's crap. All right, guys, 2 more classes to go. We've got Warlock up next, my favorite class personally. So I'm excited to see what cards they got in this expansion, starting with Dr. Morgan, an 8 mana legendary minion, 5/5. With the Death Rattle, swap this with a minion from your deck. What is this card? So this is this card seems so bad. I just feel like this is so bad. Like Control Warlock probably doesn't want to be playing this card. It's an 8 mana 5/5 that does nothing when it hits the board. And his Death Rattle isn't like insane, right? Like you can pull like a Void Lord or like a Mal'Ganis or a Doomguard, but at that point it's like 8 mana plus the Death Rattle activator. So it's just like a 9 mana Lackey, for example. And I think they learned their lesson with Lackey. At this being 8 mana, after Lackey was nerfed to 6. So like I'm thinking Q block, but like why? I like you're not at this point. You're not running Lackey in Wild, so why would you run this? So I think this card's bad. I think you will not see anybody playing this card. I think it's safe to dust. The legendary spell, on the other hand, is actually something that I think is insanely good. 1 mana legendary spell, the Solarium. Draw 3 cards at the end of your turn, discard them. So this, I don't think goes in a Control Warlock deck. Probably not Reno Lock. I think this fits very nicely into Zoo. Alright? 1 mana, draw 3. You have, 8 or 9 mana to play your 3 cards. You'll generally be able to play all 3 cards because you're Zoo, and they're fairly cheap. I think this is a very good, card draw mechanic for Zoo. I really like the card. You can discard them if you're playing discard synergies. Fits nicely with Malchezaar's Imp and Silverware Golems and the Clutch Mother, and like that whole discard synergy this works well with. I don't know. I really, really like this card. I think it's like really, really strong. This card on its own, like in combination with some of the other cards we'll see, might be good enough to bring Zoo back into the picture in Wild. I think this card is that strong. Alright, so next up we have a 6 mana spell, Ectomancy. Summon copies of all demons you control. Alright, so I thought when I saw this, I was like, this card's insane, right? Key block, Reno Lock. But the more I'm thinking about it, right, you need your demons to stick on the board, right? So you need your Doomguard to stick. You need your Mal'Ganis to stick. You need your Void Lord to stick. And then you have to spend 6 mana on this. I don't think it's absolutely insane, but I do think it's strong. I think this card's like very, very win more and something like Q block. In Reno Lock, I don't think you can afford to use a deck slot on a card like this, especially when you're only running 4 demons to begin with. In Q block, though, where you're running a few more demons, right? Because you get to run the double Doomguard as well. The double Void Caller, the double Void Lord, and Mal'Ganis. So I could see this like potentially as a one-of in something like Q block. Again, it is very win more. You could potentially do like Void Caller and then kill your Void Caller on 5 and then play Ectomancy on 6, or you can Skull the Minari on 5 and Ectomancy on 6 for like double Doomguard, for example. Or the demon you pull on 6 plus Ectomancy. I don't know a world where I want to Ectomancy over like Cube Dark Pact, for example, because you get 2 copies, or you get get the value trade and then play the cube on it. I like the flavor of the card. Potentially see play. It's a very greedy card to play in Q block. Don't get me wrong, I like the card. I always like demon stuff because I love Mal'Ganis as a card, and I love Warlock. But like, I'd rather run. I don't think there's very many situations where you're gonna be like the max value you get out of this is just like 3 copies, and I very rarely see situations where you're getting anything more than 1. And at that point, why are you not just running faceless manipulators, which are better in more situations, right? So I like the card. I think it's a little, too expensive to be good enough to see play in Wild. Potentially, if the meta gets super, super slow, you can see copies of this card, but my gut instinct is telling me that it's not going to be fast enough or good enough to see play. Alright, so next up we have Omega Agent, the next of our Omega cards. 5 mana, 4/5. with the Battle Cry, if you have 10 mana crystals, summon 2 copies of this minion. So at 5 mana, a 4/5 body is not it's like pretty understated actually, right? Because 4/5s for 4 mana. But then once you get to 10 mana, you summon 2 copies of this minion. So it's basically Doppelgangster-esque at 10 mana, with any potential buffs, right? So like hand buff Warlock might be a thing, right? With some of the cards we'll see later in the set. The thing is, so slower control Warlock decks, right? At 5 mana, I don't want to play a 4/5 because it's bad, right? But then once I get to 10 mana, I'd rather be doing other things like playing big demons or Gul'dan or N'Zoth or brand combos with Kazakus and Zola or Gnome Feratu or Dirty Rat, or be playing Godfrey to set up for a board swing. I just don't think it's very good in control decks. So then you get to the point where it's like a mid-range Warlock good enough to see play. Like not Zoo, like not an aggressive Zoo deck, but not like Arena Lock or Control Warlock, like somewhere in the between. Not sure. I don't foresee it. Like I could always be wrong. But you could run like Skull of the Minari and like Double Sense Demons, and then a lot of demon synergies, and then just have this as like once you hit 10 mana, you play 12, 15 of stats or buffed. It's better. So like potentially it'll see play. If it does see play, it sees play in a mid-range Warlock. I don't think this or mid-range Warlock will actually be good enough though to make. I don't think this is good enough to see mid-range Warlock be playable. And therefore this card I don't think we'll see play. Like I don't think this goes in Arena Lock. I don't think this goes in Control Warlock. Don't think it goes in Zoo either, because by Zoo you're trying to win the game before turn 10. So I don't think this card sees play. So next up we have Nether Soul Buster, 3 mana 1/5 demon. Battle Cry, gain +1 attack for each damage your hero has taken this turn. So as you guys saw in the reveal stream, this actually has some pretty like crazy turns that you can have with this card. My thing is, this goes in probably a Zoo-esque deck, right? So which means you're never able to play this on turn 3, right? And because of that, I think it loses a lot of points in my eyes, right? I'm not sure I want to be playing a card that I can't play for its mana cost when I'm playing like a Zoo deck or a mid-range deck. So like turn 5, it's a 3/5. I mean, you can play with what is it called? The Drain Bomb, Soul Bomb, whatever. The 2 mana deal 4, take 4. So like on turn 5, you can make this a like deal 4, and it's a 6/5 minion, right? I mean, even with Wrathguard, you're like if they don't kill it off, right? It's like 3 mana 4/5, which is pretty good, but that's optimistic. So like but like in a Zoo or a mid-range deck, which is where this would see play, I want to be able to play it on curve if I need to, and you cannot play this on curve because it's garbage on curve, right? Which is the same reason all the like damage yourself minions from Witchwood didn't see play, because you can't really play them on curve. So I like the card. It's a cool concept. Like maybe you see shenanigans with Blood Bloom. Like this could potentially fit in that Blood Bloom Warlock. But I think the fact that you can't play this on 3 hurts it a lot in my eyes. I'm not sure. This hurts to play. I don't know. Especially since you want to curve out if you're playing the Zoo or the mid-range deck. So, all right. So next up, we have another buff to Demon Zoo list in Wild. We got Void Analyst, 2 mana 2/2, Demon. Death Rattle, give all demons in your hand +1/+1. So this is like an interesting card, right? Like a Kelasethi effect for your hand. It's a 2 mana 2/2. It's like a decent body, right? My problem with this card is like Death Rattle, which could be an upside, right? Because you get to draw another card before you get to trigger the Death Rattle. My thing is, like, is this better? Is running 2 of these better than running Keleseth? Because this affects your hand. Um, I think the fact that this is a demon is what saves it and makes it playable in Wild, right? Because it gets to be able to be buffed by all the other buff effects for demons and and like it's buffed by the Void Analyst itself. I think the fact that this is a demon is what saves this card in Wild. Zoolock in Wild has struggled, right, with finding good 2-drops to run, right? Which is why it ran Keleseth. Keleseth is super inconsistent, which is why I think this card's going to be good enough to play in Zoo. I think this card, is strong. I don't know if it's good, like strong enough. It's strong. Is it strong enough to bring Zoo back from the brink? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Is this in combination with a Solarium and like a discard Zoo better than like a demon buff Zoo? I'm not sure. So I like the card. I think it's strong. Is it strong enough for Wild Zoolock? I don't know. My problem with Zoolock is it just doesn't feel strong enough, and I feel like you steal a lot of wins because people expect control arena locks, and you're able to steal wins that way. Other than that, it doesn't feel strong. But I like it. I like it. Hand buff Warlock PogChamp. 1 mana spell, Soul Infusion. Give the leftmost minion in your hand +2/+2. I mean, so this works well with like, buffing the demons in your hand if you really want to do it. It's a 1 mana +2/+2. Works well with the Mega Agent that's been sitting in your hand. It's just 1 minion though. I don't understand why you would want to play this outside of doubling Imp, which we'll see next. And that's like, you need to not only have doubling Imp in your hand, it needs to be the leftmost card in your hand. So there's a lot of RNG involved in getting good value out of this card. And therefore, whenever that's like one of the whenever or like a way that a card's good is based on RNG, right? Like having the card that you want to target the leftmost card in your hand, like that to me is a signal of not a very good card, for constructed at least. So I don't know. Like it's a strong effect, right? Especially if you can get it on something good like a doubling Imp or a Serenite Chain Gang or like an Omega Agent if you're playing it, right? Like then it'll be pretty good. But outside of that, like maybe not. It's a 1 mana 2/2 buff though. So it's like it's a 5/4 Flame Imp if it's the leftmost card in your hand and you didn't play it on turn 1. 3/5. So like it's okay, but it's a single minion. I mean, it's okay. Again, it's one of those cards like it's good. It's not good enough to see play in Wild, I believe, right? I think there's much better cards, much more consistent cards you can be running in Wild to not need to run Soul Infusion. Alright, so here we see doubling Imp. 3 mana 2/2 Demon. Battlecry summon a copy of this minion. So this works really well with Void Analyst and the Soul Infusion. Or Prince Keleseth if you want to run that, which you probably don't because Void Analyst is probably just better. So this is hand buff Warlock, right? Without any buffs, it's 3 mana 2/2 +2/2, so it's a 3 mana 4/4. Which is a solid body, and with Zoo, then you can play this, and then you can play Crystal Weaver, the 4 mana 5/4 buff all your demons. So there's that sort of synergy. So I think this card's very good. I like this card in Zoo. This is probably going in your Demon Zoo list, right? That's running all your buffs and running Crystal Weavers. I like this card. I don't like Soul Infusion, even if I am running this card. But I think this is just like a solid statted minion with upside to it. So I like it. Like Void Analyst into a 3 mana 6/6 is pretty good. But I like it. It's probably pretty good. Probably good enough to run in Wild Zoo. I like the card. Alright, so next up we have Demonic Project, a 2 mana spell. Each player transforms a random minion in their hand into a demon. So this is the standard Dirty Rat, right? To try to interact with stuff like Hadronox, Vertant Druid, and Shutterwalk Shaman. Thing is, in Wild, we don't really need to run this because we actually have Dirty Rat, right? And I think you run Dirty Rat over this a million times before you run Demonic Project because of the potential synergies with Dirty Rat. What I don't like about Demonic Project is like you're transforming a minion in your own hand. I guess it doesn't matter if you're trying to disrupt a combo, but then it's a dead hand in your it's a dead card in your deck against most other matchups. Um, I also don't see why you would run this alongside Dirty Rat. I don't like you don't need to because Bran and Zola exist, right? So you get multiple Dirty Rat triggers anyways. Um, I don't think this card's good. You have Dirty Rat, you have Death Lord. You don't need to run Demonic Project. Demonic Project is standard, pretty much only if you're running it in that. So I'm gonna say hard no, hard pass. I don't think this is gonna see play in Wild. All right, and last but not least, we have Spirit Bomb, a 2-mana spell. Deal 4 damage to a minion and your hero. I actually really like this card after talking to a few people. I don't think this necessarily goes in Arena Lock deck because you have Shadow Bolt, for example, but this goes really nicely, slots in really nicely in, for example, even Warlock, right? Being able to deal with early Totem Golems and Henge Clans shores up a big weakness of the deck. Plus, damaging yourself isn't a bad thing in that deck, right? Because you want to activate your Molten Giants as early as possible, activate that Hooked Reaver as early as possible. I think this card's insanely strong in even Warlock. I like the card a ton. I think this is a huge buff to even Warlock, right? Especially as even Warlock has good matchups into popular decks like Arena Lock. I really like the deck. I really like the card. I think it slots in very nicely into the deck, and I think it's a very strong card. So, the only upside was like if you could combo this with Malagos, right? But you can't. But I think this card's very solid. Again, it's a common minion. Very nice, upside to it as well. I think this card's solid. I think it goes, auto-clued 2 of in even Warlock. I'm not sure what we're cutting, but it's going in there. I think this is probably up there with, it's actually probably not even arguably. I think it's the best card Warlock got in the set so far. So, not even so far. I think it's the best Warlock card that they got in the set. So I really like the card. Really like it. And last but not least, we've got Warrior. Warrior needs some help in Wild because they have no other archetypes outside of Pirate Warrior that are really competitive. So hopefully they got some really good stuff. So let's take a look. First up is the legendary Spell Warrior, the Boom Ship, a 9-mana spell that says summon 3 random minions from your hand and give them Rush. So these are your big boys, right? That you're holding. Either they're big mechs or they're stuff like the Lich King or Grom or maybe not Grom. Or the big boys that a control warrior deck, a warrior deck that can afford to play a 9-mana spell would play. It gives them rush, board control. I don't think this card's good though. It's 9 mana. Why? Just recruit the big minions from your deck, I guess. And this is like if you're unfortunate and get the big minion stuck in your hand, you can play this. I don't think this is good enough, even for like a control warrior that's running a lot of threats. It's a really cool card art. There's that. But you need to be running big boys. They need to be stuck in your hand. Then you need to draw this. I'm not seeing a world, at least in Wild, where a control warrior deck can afford to do that. So I'm gonna hard pass on this legendary spell. I think it's not very good. That might come back to bite me, but I don't not feeling this card. I don't think it's very good. And next up, we've got the main character of the expansion. We've got Dr. Boom, Mad Genius, a 7-mana hero card for warrior. Battle cry: for the rest of the game, your mechs have rush, but you do get to gain 7 armor instead of the normal 5. Okay, my problem with this card right now is you don't get an immediate board impact that all the other Death Knights really get to have, right? Because you don't do AoE damage to the board like Rexar or Hagatha. You don't get the minion resummons or the summons like Jaina or Gul'dan or Malfurion. So all the power comes after turn 7, right? Which I'm not sure. So you're gonna need to be either a tempo deck, right, or a control warrior with like Brawl or like something like a Foe Reaper to follow up Dr. Boom, right? Because I don't see a world where you can just spend 7 mana on something that's not gonna have an immediate board impact, right? So like maybe like a Tempo Warrior deck, but like, can a Tempo Warrior deck afford to, spend 7 mana? But we get to the the hero powers. The hero powers are pretty nice. For the most part, they're all pretty good. I don't think you want to be running Dr. Boom in like a Control Warrior deck, because I think a Control Warrior deck would rather have Justicar. I do think that like the Discoverer mech is always like really awesome. The 3/1/1s with with Rush rather are all very good. But the problem is that the hero powers are random, right? Don't get me wrong, I love this card. I just don't think it's nearly as strong as everybody thinks it's gonna be. I'm not sold on the card, right? After playing with it, I might be able to change my mind, right? But I think Dr. Boom, the thing with Dr. Boom is the reason I'm probably going to play with Dr. Boom is because he allows big mechs like Foe Reaper or Sneed's Old Shredder, like all the big boy mechs to actually see play, because they have immediate board impact now. So like a slow tempo mech warrior, I'm not sure. I think the card's okay. I don't think he's game breaking though. But I do think he's fun, and I definitely think if you open it, definitely have some fun with him before you disenchant him for something that you might actually want to be competitive. All right, Beryllium Nullifier, 7 mana, 3/8, magnetic, can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. I honestly think this card's crap because you're spending 7 mana, 3/8. You have to attach it to like an Annoyatron, or like something along those lines for it to be good. Like it needs taunt in order for this to be good. If it had taunt baseline, it'd be really good. This card otherwise is terrible, and you can't rely on it. It's 100 dust. Like this card, it's bad. Don't play it. All right. Next up is the Warrior Weapon for the set. It's Super Collider. Super cool name. 5 mana, 1/3 weapon though. After you attack a minion, force it to attack one of its neighbors. So this is gonna make people start thinking about positioning a lot more, which is always cool. But either you're face tanking 8 to make the 8, like if your opponent has a bunch of like tall minions, it's gonna hurt, or if it's a bunch of small minions, it doesn't really matter. I mean, 5 mana weapon, it's a pretty good tempo swing if you can kill off 2 minions when like on the first swing, right? It's very situational though. Like, does it do anything against it's even Shaman if they like position well? Not really, right? I think this weapon's garbage tier. I don't think it's very good. I'm not a fan of the weapon either. I'm not a fan of a lot of these warrior cards so far. Alright, next up we have Security Rover, a 6 mana 2/5 mech. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/3 mech with taunt. So this is like a worse Hogger, in my opinion, right? Because it doesn't summon the taunts immediately. The self-damage, you have to have like a Blood Razor or a Deathspite equipped. Like if this had taunt itself, it'd be okay. Like it's another one of those minions, like if this just had another keyword to it, it'd be pretty good. As it stands though, it's not very good. There's no reason I see for you to play this card. So 5 for 5, bad cards so far for Warrior. Feels bad. Alright, speaking of bad cards, we can go ahead and make it 6 for 6. This is a 5 mana 3/4. So, 3 mana 3/4 is considered average. Okay. So for 2 mana, you're paying 2 mana for the Battle Cry. Deal 5 damage randomly, split along all minions that are not mechs. So that means you need to be running nothing but mechs. And then it's random 5 damage. So it's like a Mad Bomber or a Matter Bomber or like one of those minions. And those don't see play for good reason because it's random damage, right? This is at least minions, which makes it a little bit better, but it's nowhere near good enough for constructed play, so I think its card's bad. Alright, up next is the first warrior card that I think has potential in Wild. I don't think it's going to be good necessarily, but it's got potential, right? a 1-mana spell, Omega Assembly. This is the first Omega spell, and I think the only Omega spell. Discover a mech, and if you have 10 mana crystals, keep all 3 cards. So first off, unlike stuff like taunts or battle cries and stuff like that, there's a lot fewer mechs in the pool, right? Even though it's discover a mech, right, between warrior and neutral, there's a lot less mechs, right? Because it was GVG, and then there was like 1 or 2 mechs per expansion after that, until this one. There are a lot of bad mechs, but then there's also like the high roll, like, you know, potential of finding a mech warper, piloted shredder, like, it's not the lowest percentage points in the world, and then so like it's decent, and then in control matchups you get all 3 mechs, so it's 1 mana, get 3 random mechs, which is pretty insane actually. Like I'm assuming Mech Warpers or not Mech Warper, sorry. I'm assuming Mech Warrior is going to be a more mid-rangey deck, like a mid-range tempo style deck. I think a mid-range tempo style deck wants to play like Warbot on 1, or even like Nizosphorus Mate on 1, because the Nizosphorus Mate's pretty good card. I don't know if you want to take up a deck slot with this card. Maybe it's good enough value in slow matchups that it's worth running. I can see it. So I don't want to write this one off. This is like the first warrior card so far that has potential. So I'm gonna give it like a 3 out of 5. Like I think it has potential. I like this card, right? Because there's a lot fewer mechs in the pool, so it's a lot more likely for you to get good cards. But there are also still a lot of bad mechs out there. So we'll see. I'll definitely play with this and see how it feels. But yeah, I'm not completely writing this one off, but I'm not sold that this card's amazing either. All right, next is another garbage projects card. Yeah, Warlock and Warrior got some pretty bad project cards. A 2 mana spell. Each player equips a 2/3 weapon and gains 6 armor. So this is pretty good again, like if you're playing like a control warrior, right? Gets to break Alieness, gets to break the Twig if you're in standard, gets to break Skull if you're in standard. But like I don't see any reason that like this is not going to see play in any aggressive deck. I don't think it's sees play in a control deck either. I don't even like, so then it comes down to a mid-range deck. But I think mid-range deck you still just run Nizosphorus Mate and Deathspite over Weapons Project. Like the 2/3 weapon doesn't kill things, right? What is a 2/3 weapon gonna kill that a 1 attack weapon's killing or not killing in this meta, right? It's like all the impactful cards are gonna have 3 health, and then or they're 1 health pirates, right? So like unless you want to equip this weapon and kill off totems, but then you're giving your opponent a weapon, I'm not feeling this card. So I might be wrong, but I don't think this card's very good at all in Wild. So I don't think this will see play. All right. So second to last, we have Rocket Boots, a 2 mana spell for warrior. Give a minion rush, draw a card. I think the give a minion rush part of this card isn't what's important. I think the drawing of the card is the reason you'd play this card. Because giving a minion rush means you're playing this not on turn 2. You're probably playing it like turn 4, turn 5. And then giving like a 2 or a 3 attack minion rush. And then why are you not just running, you know, Darius Crowley or like the good rush minions? So the draw the card I think is the most important part about this. And then why are you running this over Battle Rage? I'm not sure. Like combo warrior's not very good right now. I don't know if there's a combo, so I think this card's not very good. So and last but not least for warrior, you have Eternium Rover, the 1 mana 1/3 mech for warrior. Whenever this minion takes damage, gain 2 armor. So this is gonna go in that standard like control mech warrior. But again, I don't ever foresee control warriors running mechs in Wild. So this is gonna be like a tempo-y mid-range deck. And then why are you not just running Warbot? Because Warbot's just straight up better than this card. So feels bad. for Eternium Rover. I think the card's good. You might even run like this and Warbot, and then like Nizosphorus Mate and Patches, right? Like your 1-drops for like your tempo mid-range list. It's just I don't think whenever this minion takes damage, gain 2 armor is super relevant for this card, especially since you're probably wanting to run Battle Rage. So like maybe not. Again, 1 mana 1/3s are pretty busted anyways. So I think this will see play just because the stat line. I think the effect of the card is actually not super relevant in the deck that's going to be running this. So now that we've gotten through all of the class cards, it's now time to move on to all of the neutral cards of the set. Starting with probably the best, most memeiest card of the set, Mecha'thun. Alright? 10 mana, 10/10. Cthulhu, one of the most beloved old gods back in its heyday, has come back as a robot. 10 mana, 10/10, Death Rattle. If you have no cards in both your deck, hand, and battlefield, I guess that's not both, that's all 3, destroy the enemy hero when this dies. Immediately this was released and everybody was thinking of some crazy combos with this card. I think the most easy one is in Warlock with Mecha'thun, Bloodbloom, and Cataclysm, and you discount, Bloodbloom and Mecha'thun with Emperor Thorson. Outside of that, I don't know any other way that you're winning with this card. But it's definitely 5-star meme. Definitely going to be super fun to play with. Therefore, 5 stars. Keep this card. Don't disenchant it, please. Okay, it's Cthulhu. Don't do this to me. Don't disenchant Cthulhu. Okay. Alright, so next up we have the big legendary mech of the set, Ziliax. A 5 mana 3/2 mech. And so while the stats themselves might not be insane, look at all those key words on the card. Magnetic, Divine Shield, Taunt, Lifesteal, and Rush. Okay? So, this card's got tons of potential, especially since we have Mech Warper in our format. Alright? So, if you leave a mech on the board against Warlock, Glinda, Mech Warper, and then Mech Warper, Ziliax, OTK, right? Or you can go Wrathguard Treachery with Ziliax, or you could just run Ziliax in, like, a mid-range deck, right? With Mech Warpers or other magnetic minions. For example, this is one of the cards that makes me want to run Corpse Taker, mid-range Paladin, mid-range Mech Paladin, right? Because look at all those keywords. I've never seen so many on one card. This is beautiful. I love it. Lifesteal, you make a huge Lifesteal minion with Divine Shield, Taunt, Rush, right? So you get the Lifesteal twice. It's just a solid card that, the person who finds the best way to abuse this card is going to win a lot of games, right? It's a very good card. I really like it. Really, really cool. I appreciate the card. Appreciate them releasing something cool like this. Probably, depending on who you ask, right? Depending on whether you like memes or not, I would be willing to say that this is like the best neutral legendary, just based off of all the mech synergy in the set. Next up, we have Subject 9, creepy card. Not gonna lie, creepy card. 5 mana, 4/4, Battlecry, draw 5 different secrets from your deck. Okay, so what deck are you running 5 different secrets in? Secret Paladin probably is the only one, right? Like, even Secret Mage only runs 3? Maybe 4, right? Like, Secret Hunter runs like 3, maybe 4, probably not. And so, like, I think the only class that this is going to see play in will be Hunter, right? Just because you have benefit for playing Secrets from Hand in the Spellstone. But then this is a 5 mana 4/4, which is not very good stats, and then you have to play the secrets themselves. I'm just not. I'm not sold on this card. I don't think it's very good. Like Paladin has Mysterious Challenger and Bellringer Sentry. Mage has its secret tutors. Rogue, why are you running secrets in Rogue, right? So I think this is the only going to see play in Hunter, and that's if you want to draw your secrets and play them after turn 5, which means you're not playing your spell's turn until turn 7. I'm not sold. I'm not sold. It's not very good tempo. And in Hunter, like, tempo and board control is pretty much key. So I don't think this is going to see play. Like if you play this with Cloaked Huntress on board, yes, you get to play all your secrets for free. But how often is that actually going to happen, right? And you can't judge a card based on its high roll potential, right? You have to think about on average. All right, next up we have Whizbang the Wonderful. 4 mana, 4/5. The only reason you see this is if you want to have fun, right? Or if you're free to play and you can't, or you don't want to invest money in the game to create all these decks. This gives you 18 deck recipes to play with. I think this is, very, very good from Blizzard for the new player experience. But in terms of constructed play, not going to see any play, right? Not very competitive. I do like the flavor of this card. I do like what the reasoning behind this card was. Just lets free-to-play players experience 18 decks when, like, it's not for the serious player, it's for the player who plays Hearthstone, 15 minutes a day and wants to play 1 or 2 random decks a day, right? So I think it's very good for those types of players, but for those that actually want to, play constructed seriously, I don't think this card's very good. All right, so next up we have Harbinger Celestia. All right, 4 mana, 5/6, great stats. And I'd be like, oh, it's awesome, until you see the text where it's like, after your opponent plays a minion, become a copy of it, right? So it's garbage against aggressive decks, because they just play a bunch of cheap stuff, and it makes this a 4 mana, 2/3, right? Not very good. This is, they could just play a Doomsday into this, and you die. Like, your board dies, right? So, this is best when your opponent does nothing, right? So, therefore, I don't think this card's very good. Alright. So next up we have Starliner, 7 mana, 7/7. If you control 3 minions with 7 health, deal 7 damage to all enemies. In Wild, I'm not seeing any sort of situation where you want to be playing this. Like, you get Aviana, Kun, something, plus this, and you can deal 7 damage, but, why? When you have better combos. I'm not seeing any situation where this is a good card. So, hard pass, 100 Dust. Okay, so this is another one of those, when your opponent plays a minion, summon a 1/1 copy of this. It's a 5 mana, 3/3, terrible stats, but, I'm not seeing a situation where you want to do this, right? Because, again, it's kind of meh against aggro, and in, the mirrors, generally, I get a 1/1 Dirty Rat. I don't know. It's very easy to clear. Doomsayer, again, this is just same situation as the legendary card. I don't need the copy, don't want the copy, and it's a liability, so pass. Alright, so Sephorium Bomber is actually kind of a cool card. This card's not an automatic hard pass. I think the meme potential of this card is actually pretty high, right? So you can run this in Shutterwalk Shaman, right? So currently Shutterwalk Shaman runs there are lists out there that are just going for the Loatheb, lock you out, play a big board sort of effect, right? And so you can shuffle a bunch of bombs into your opponent's deck and just keep Loatheb locking them out until they draw all the bombs. They can't do anything, right? That's one way you can go with this card. You can combo it with Iron Juggernaut and just make a a self-destruct deck for your opponent. So it's kind of cool. I don't think it's a strong card, but it's got meme potential. And it's a 5 mana, 5/5, so it's not terrible stats, right? It's almost average stats. With very little downside, right? Other than the fact that it's a 5 mana, 5/5 with no immediate impact. So, yeah, I think it's cool. Can potentially have some memes in Rogue, right? With the gank ups and shadow steps and shadow casters, and just shuffle 20 bombs into your opponent's deck, right? Easy. So next up we have a funny looking crab here with the 5 mana EMP Operative, 5 mana, 3/3, destroy a mech. I like this style of hate card a lot more than stuff like Galactic Crawler, right? Where it's good on curve and then has high roll potential if it hits what it's supposed to hit, right? So first of all, I'm glad that they're introducing it in the same set, right? Instead of waiting for mechs to be oppressive for 4 months and then introducing the hate card. But I like the 5 mana 3/3. It's not great, but it's if mechs become oppressive, it's there if you need it. But I honestly think that Spellbreaker is just going to be a better, tech card than EMP Operative. If mechs get out of control with Magnetic. So, alright, 5 mana 6/6, Loose Specimen. Battlecry deals 6 damage, randomly split among other friendly minions. It's a very good arena card. don't see any situation where you want this in Wild Constructed, right? Like, you could suggest, like, recruiting this card's probably not bad, but if you're going to recruit a big beast, you either want the big boys, like the Devil Swords, the King Crush, or the High Mains, or if you're going to go for, like, a cheaper minion, just run the Witchwood Grizzly. Like, maybe this has synergy with, like, Enrage and Warrior. Like, Frothing Berserkers and other Berserkers. Or like Axe Fling, I don't know. It potentially has synergy in, like, that sort of style of deck, but it's, like, Rot Face synergy potentially. Like, Gun Tower synergy. But other than that, I can't see this seeing play. So next up we have a Mega Defender, 4 mana 2/6 taunt, which is normal stats, right? A little bit below average, right? Because you have Bloodhoof Brave, 4 mana 2/6 with upside. So this is a 4 mana 2/6 taunt, but with upside, if you have 10 mana crystals, you gain 10 attack, right? So late game, it's a 4 mana 12/6 taunt, which is pretty nuts. This is honestly better than most of the other Omega cards that have been released. So I think this is an okay card. Like, it's probably pretty good to get off of something like Stonehill Defender. But I'm not sold that this is a card you want to put in your deck on purpose, right? This is a card that, like, you won't be disappointed to get off of Stonehill Defender, right? But I think it's okay. Next up is another card that's up there for the best art of the set. 4 mana 4/3 Weaponized Pinata. Death Battle, add a random legendary minion to your hand. So I don't think this card's going to be good in WoW, right? Because of the huge variety in the legendary pool. But think of this as like a Shredder that's like 10 times worse, but 10 times cooler because it's a Pinata with Gatling guns. So I really like it. It's a cool flavor. It's probably not good enough to run in Wild, but I'm gonna run it in Wild because why not? Because it's a weaponized Pinata. But real talk, I don't think the card's good enough, like, competitively to see play. So if you're a tryhard who doesn't like to have fun, don't craft Weaponized Pinata. Otherwise, Weaponized Pinata is like, Alright, so next we have a card, Augmenting Alec, 3 mana 3/4 Beast. Whenever you shuffle a card into a deck, shuffle in an extra copy. So I think this card has massive upside because of the potential like synergies that it has in Wild. So for example, you have Augmenting Alec and Archbishop Benedictus. You have all the shuffling cards in Rogue. You have this plus Veldorius Strider and like a non-odd tempo / miracle rogue. This with like the bombs or Iron Juggernaut. This card's got a ton of potential synergies. Are any of those synergies viable competitively? Maybe not. Like, I don't like with gang ups and stuff like that potentially can see play. I think honestly the most viable synergies with this card is Augmentic Alec on 3 into Veldorius Strider on 4 in Rogue, or this plus like gang up, so you shuffle 4 copies instead of 3, or then like this plus Archbishop Benedictus, in Priest, right? If you're playing that value 50-minute game Priest deck, right? So, I mean, I think those are the two most viable that I can think of right now. But I just, like, other than that, I'm not sure, right? Because I don't think you want to run this with Jade Idols, right? Because it means you have to run a 3/4, right? Which makes Oaken Summons meh. So next we have a 1 mana 1/3 Crystallizer. Battlecry, deal 5 damage to your hero, gain 5 armor. If only this was 2 mana, right? So you could run it in even Warlock. But no, I think this is like a control warrior card. Like instant armor gain with a body for shield slams, or any sort of like effect like that, to activate Battle Rage. So like maybe in combination with a 3 mana 1/5 from Warlock, but that means you're also running you're running this card. I don't know. Maybe it goes in that Zulok. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it goes in Warrior. Probably doesn't. This is like very hard to like analyze though because it's really cool design, right? Like this probably goes in decks where you want your life total to be low, like that Zoolock deck, um, or like even like for battle rage value or revenge value, for example, in warrior. Um, but you also have like the armor component, right? If you're playing warrior, for example. So I don't know, it's cool. Yeah, it does fit Heal Zoo for standard, but Heal Zoo's not a thing in wild. Heal Zoo sucks in wild. But yeah, this is really cool card design. Really hard to like figure out what exactly this is. I think this is better than most other cards that are neutral, at least for epics. I like it. It's okay. I don't want to say it's good because I don't know what it's going to be utilized in, but because of that, I also don't want to say it's bad. So I'm very on this card. 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5. Next up, we have Arcane Dynamo. 6 mana, 3/4. Battlecry, discover a spell that costs 5 or more. So this is a very good arena card if you're playing Mage. Outside of that, like I don't think this goes in big spell Mage because I'd rather just run the spell that costs 5 or more than having to discover it. Because 6 mana, 3/4 is a pretty crappy body, right? So, like, I don't see a way that this is playing constructed. Alright, next up we have Missile Launcher. It's basically a 6 mana Dreadlord that deals damage to the opponent's face. Missile Launcher magnetic. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all other characters. So we have the Hunter Poison minion that's also magnetic that works really nicely with Missile Launcher. But that means you're waiting until turn 7, turn 8, which, I mean, if you're playing something like Reno Hunter might be viable, right? It's like the Poisonous Dread skill, right? It's potential. Like, I'm not sure about this card, right? Like, it on its own, it's not very good. Right? Because it comes down too late for Odd Paladin. Like, it comes out a little bit too late for Odd Paladin, I believe. You have to be able to deal with that first wave of threats. If you can stick it with, like, Poisonous or, like, Divine Shield, make it hard to kill. It can be really annoying for aggressive decks. But is it good enough outside of that? Probably not. Alright, so we got Mechanical Whelp, 6 mana, 2/2 mech. Death Battle 7 is 7/7 Mechanical Dragon. So this is very similar to, like, the 4 mana 1/1 that summons a 5/5 on death, right? The only upside is, like, this is a little bit more expensive, but you get the bigger payoff, plus it's a mech. Like, you could magnetize a taunt minion to it, but again, I predict Silence is going to be super heavy, right? Like, in the meta because of magnetic. And if Silence is super, you're paying 6 mana for a 2/2. So, probably not good enough. I don't think it's a C play. Speaking of cards that won't see play, a 6 mana 5/1 with Rush that adds 2 1/1s with Rush will not see play. Speaking of seeing play, I think this card is very, very good. Geekling Inventor, 5 mana 2/1, Battlecry, summon 2 Annoyatrons. Okay? So the reason most people play Sludge Belchers in control decks is because it soaks 2 hits, right? Yes, it comes back with N'Zoth, but this soaks 4 hits and has mech synergies. I think this card is absolutely insane. I honestly think that this might even take the place of Sludge Belcher in some or most decks. It's a solid card in, like, mid-range mech Paladin, right, for example, because it's 3 bodies, 2 Annoyatrons, sets up really nicely for something like a Fungalmancer, or if you're in standard, Cobalt Scalebane. I think this card's very, very, very strong. And that's saying something for Wild, right? If I'm saying something like competes with Sludge Belcher, I really, really like this card. I think this is one of the most busted cards in the set. I think it will definitely see play in Wild. I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say. Annoyatrons were annoying when they came off of Call to Arms, right? So this is essentially a neutral defensive Call to Arms, right? So it absorbs 4 hits, which is insane. Again, you run Belcher because it absorbs 2 hits, right? The reason you run Belcher over Applebomb is because it absorbs 2. This absorbs 4. This is nuts. This is a really strong card. Replicating Menace, 4 mana 3/1 mech, magnetic, Death Battle, summon 3 1/1 Microbots. So technically it's a 4 mana 6/4, which is like meh in stats. It's magnetic, so you stick it to, like, one of your 3 drops, and it summons 1/1s that you can also magnetic. And so, like, that's the only reason I would see play is because it's sticky mech. But then if you want sticky mechs, there's better options that we'll see later. So, I don't foresee this card seeing play. So all the crazy mech synergies, especially with potential OTKs or stuff like Mimirons, right? The reason Mech Warper is so strong is because it reduces the cost of mechs by 1. Galvanizer's in that same kind of realm. If there is an OTK surrounding mechs, this, at least in Standard, potentially in Wild, for redundancy and in Wild at least, will be pretty strong, I feel. The question is there a mech OTK outside of, like, Warlock Glinda? Probably not. But, like, Fire Plume Harbinger saw play in Standard Shutterwalk Shaman for a little bit, because then you could discount the Murmuring Elemental to guarantee your Shutterwalk went off properly. Like, it might be the same thing in Wild, right? If there's a mech OTK, you probably run this to guarantee, like, for redundancy, right? You run this alongside the Emperor Thorson. Is there one that's reliable and good enough and doesn't take up a billion card slots? Not that I've seen, not that I know of right now. So therefore I don't think this sees play, but the reason this isn't a game is for a combo enabler, right? It's not a strong card on its own, it's a combo enabler. So alright. So next up we have Unpowered Mauler, a 2-mana 2/4 mech. So pretty good stats for a 2-drop. However, it can only attack if you've cast a spell this turn. So what are you playing this in? Like, maybe the Miracle Priest, but then why are you running a 2-mana 2/4? I'm not seeing a world where this sees play. So, can we move on? I think we should move on. So, next up we have Spark Engine, 2-mana 2/1 mech with a Battlecry, add a 1/1 Spark with Rush to your hand. Okay, so this is 2-mana 2/1 with a 1/1 in your hand. Therefore, not very good, right? Power creep on, Force Take Max, feels bad. 9-mana 9/7 Divine Shield mech, Bulldozer. Constructed. Alright, so now we have Damage Stegatron, 6-mana 5/12. It is Taunt, but its Battlecry deals 6 damage to this minion. So default, it's a 6-mana 5/6 Taunt mech. Not very good, but, like, potential in Priest, right? You have to think about always Priest because you have Circle of Healing and Divine Hymn. I mean, okay, so this might have potential in, like, a Recruit Mech Warrior, maybe. I'm not sold. There's potential. Like, gather your party into a 5/12 taunt into, like, magnetic mechs. You have the Boom Ship. You have Varian Rin, actually, right? That's a forgotten card, right? Draw 3 if their minions play them on the board. So, like, I guess there's potential, actually. Yeah, so, thanks for chat for, changing my mind a little bit. There's potential. It's not absolute crap like I thought. But other than that, I don't think, like, outside of the Mech Warrior, like, in Combo Priest, you won't see this play. Like, Combo Priest has the 0/9 taunt mech. But, I mean, I think it's okay. I don't think it'll see play, but it's got potential, I guess, right? Alright, next up we have Rusty Recycler, a 5-mana 2/6 Taunt Lifesteal mech. I mean, it's just, like, 4-mana 2/6 is, like, already, like, pushing it when it comes to stats. The fact that this has Lifesteal, is it relevant? I don't think so. Unless you want to play Okart in a, unless you're wanting to play Okart with mechs. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. Can't see it. Can't see the scene play. It's literally Wally. Yes, I mean, it's cute art, but from competitive standpoint, I don't think so. Alright, so next up we have Piloted Reaper. This is the way Piloted Shredder probably should have been in this original format. In its original form, rather. It's 4-mana 4/3 Piloted Reaper. Death Rattle. Summon a random minion from your hand that costs 2 or less. Again, I don't see any world where you're playing this over Piloted Shredder. So, I don't see any world where we're playing this in Wild. So, like, I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, potential synergies. Like it's okay, but I don't know. I mean, it pulls like you could run both. I guess you could run both, but so you like. Next up, we have Explodinator, 4 mana, 3/2. Pretty crappy stats, but you get to summon 2/0/2 Goblin Bombs. These are the 0/2s that deal 2 damage to your opponent's hero. Probably not good. Not good. Coppertail Imposter, 4 mana, 4/4. Battlecry gains stealth until your next turn. So this card's actually scary good, right? So outside of like guaranteed magnetic synergies with this card, this is like a guaranteed sticky minion. Like this card's or not sticky minion, but it's like pretty much guaranteed to stick if you want to do that whole Glinda OTK, right, with Ziliax. I mean, this is like a solid 4 mana 4/4 stealth, right? If you want to play like stealth rogue potentially. I think this is actually just a solid minion. But I really like this card actually, mainly because I'm thinking of the Glinda OTK combo. But then you also just get to curve into like guaranteed magnetic minions if you want, right? I think it's just a solid card if you're going for that sort of synergy. As just a normal 4-drop, it's pretty underwhelming because it's a 4 mana 4/4, right? But it's okay. Next up, we have Brainstormer, a 3 mana 3/1. I like the art on this card, I'm not gonna lie. Battlecry, gain +1 health for each spell in your hand. I mean, I like the text on this card. Don't get me wrong, I like the text. I like the kind of flavor they're going for this. I mean, but like, what are you running this in? If you're running a 3 mana 3 attack minion, you're probably doing it in some sort of mid-rangey tempo style deck, right? Otherwise, why are we not just running like Doomsday or like Lone Champion, for example, that are probably just better and more consistent than this card? I think it's an arena card. Don't think it's going to see play in standard very much. All right, so next up we have Microtech Controller, 3 mana 2/1, 7/2/1/1 Microbot. So it's a 3 mana 4/3, which is, you know, an aggressively statted. It's an aggressively statted 3-drop. Plus you get 2 1/1 mechs for the magnetics. For the magnetics effects. Her herself is not a mech, so she doesn't get discounted by Mech Warper, sadly. But like, depending on how all in you are on magnetics, this card's pretty good. Like, it's a 3 mana 4/3. So in decks where you like the token synergy, Paladin, decks running Fungalmancer, stuff like that. Like this into coin Fungalmancer is insane, right? I like it. Again, it's not busted on its own, right? It's not gonna go in every single deck. If you're running mech synergies and you're a board token based deck focused on mech synergies, it'll be good, but like, other than that, it's okay. Next up, we have Kaboombot, 3 mana 2/2. Death Rattle, deal 4 damage to a random enemy minion. Okay, so this is similar to like the destroy a random enemy minion from Hunter, right? The Spider Bomb. So like, it needs to be magnetized too. It's a 3 mana 2/2 minion. Like, I can't see this seeing play in constructed, to be honest. Okay, 3/5, 3 mana 1/5 magnetic taunt. So this is like really annoying stuck to something like an Annoyatron, right? But you can stick this to like a Mech Warper potentially, right? Like, make your Mech Warper have 7 health and taunt if you're like in a board centric aggressive mirror. So it's 1 more mana for the magnetic and for taunt. So I think this is actually probably one of the better neutral mechs that are cheap, right? For the magnetic keyword. I really like this card. I don't know, like, being able to just give something 5 health and taunt, right, is pretty insane on its own right. Like, it's a lot of health, right? So early game, giving something a ton of health, ton of taunt to protect something like your Mech Warper, for example, pretty nuts. So I don't know. I think this will see play in like an aggressive Paladin deck potentially. So it's like the 2 mana 1/5, right, from Druid was actually really good in aggro Druid, right, because it protected, you know, your 1/1 tokens and let them go face, bought you time to buff them. I don't know. It's I don't think it's broken. I think it's good. Has to be you have to be very all in on the magnetic synergies though, and very focused on the early game. So it's a very narrow, but it's good in that narrow need, I believe. So, all right. Next up we have Electro-Right. 3 mana 3/3. If you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, gain +1/+1. So it's 3 mana 4/4, which is not amazing. And in what decks are you playing a 3 mana 4/4 that you also have a spell that costs 5 or more, right? Alright. So next up we have Robotic Deathwing, Spring Rocket, 3 mana 2/1 mech, deal 2 damage. I mean, the deal 2 damage is nice, but the 3 mana 2/1 body is not, so pass. Cloakscale Chemist, 2 mana 1/2, Stealth Divine Shield. So Stealth is nice for a magnetic minion on 3, for example. Like this into the 1/5 taunt. Like, I don't know. Like standard mech decks can curve nicely. Probably not powerful enough or fast enough for wild. I mean, because I just don't think it's good enough, right? Oh, it's not even a mech. Whoa, it's not even a mech. Wow, this card's garbage then. I thought it was a mech. So next up we have 2 mana 2/2, Toxicologist. 2 mana 2/2 Toxicologist. Battlecry, give your weapon +1 attack. So this is like Goblin Auto Barber, but worse. So pass. 2 mana 2/1. Battlecry, summon a 0/2 Goblin Bomb. I mean, so this is one of the better Goblin Bomb summoning minions, which is saying something because this card's garbage. Pass. Okay, so up next we have Upgradable Framebot. It's a 2 mana 1/5, which is actually pretty insane stat distribution, right? If you think, 3 mana 1/5 was the norm previous. It's a 2 mana 1/5, plus you get to, solid body that's going to probably stick around because 5 damage is hard to deal on turn 2. So for all those magnetic minions you got on turn 3, like this into the 1/5 taunt, you've got a 2/10 taunt on turn 3, which is pretty nuts. I don't know. I think it's pretty nice. One of the best neutral mechs, I would say, right? It's a really strong card. Really, really like it. I think this will see play in mech decks. Any deck that wants to do magnetic, I think this will see play. Alright, next up we have Goblin Bomb, the 1 mana 0/2. Deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. So this is all those things that they're summoning. So worst Leper no, because it doesn't have attack itself. This card's useless unless you magnetize something to it. And I mean, I don't want... like, these aren't comparable to eggs, right? Because the eggs give you a 4/4 or a 5/5 that do a lot more than dealing 2 damage to the enemy hero. Skaterbot. Okay, this has got probably the coolest, text, right? Skaterbot, 1 mana, 1/1, Magnetic Rush. The fact that this is Rush and Magnetic means it's got insane combo potential, right? With stuff like Mech Warpers, like insane combos like that, potentially with Glinda. There's like the OTK potential, right? You go the 4/3 Wrathguard, Treachery, and then you've got Glinda, Mech Warpers, and then you rush a huge minion into the Treachery, right? The Treachery Wrathguard. So again, more potential abuse with Glinda. I really like this card. Just giving, it's not a very good card standalone, but it's very good, combo enabler as well. So I like this card. And then we get another, probably, I think this is cuter than the 1 mana 1/1 that they showed earlier. Mecharoo, Death Rattle, summon a Joey bot. I like it. Cutest flavor. Love it. I mean, it's a 1 mana 2/2. It's Possessed Villager, but neutral and mech. Possessed Villager saw play in Zoo. If you want to play a Zergy Zoo mech deck, this goes in that deck. I like it. So, and I honestly think the Kangaroo card, Mecharoo, is better than Faithful Lumi, cuter wise. Faithful Lumi is actually, I think actually pretty underrated. I think this is a very good card. 1 mana 1/1, give a friendly mech +1/+1. Very, very strong in the early game. It's 0 mana with Mech Warper. It's like Coin Mech Warper, Faithful Lumi. Like, it's pretty strong. I think this and Mekaru are actually going to be this card, Mekaru, upgradable Framebot, are all going to be pretty core cards in kind of like the Zergy mech decks that come out, whether it's Paladin, whether it's Mage, whether it's Hunter. I think these are all very, very good cards. So, and anytime a mech or a card costs 0, you have to be a little bit scared of potential synergies. I really like the card. I like the early game mechs. Always been a fan. They haven't been very good, but this expansion's brought back a lot of early game mechs that can snowball pretty effectively. So I really like the cards. But yeah, that's gonna be all the cards.
Meow! That's right!